First of all, having me was a bad thing. On top of that, in a week, 2 days, you're not expected, right? So that's one learning where you can have is that certain things would come. You have to be prepared. That there is something which is unexpected, and then react accordingly. In strategic management, you have this proactive, reactive approach, no? So this is a this is a reactive approach. So to be prepared for everything that may come. So how are you all? All well? Just a day gap. No? Hope.
Yes.
All
How are you, sir?
But all of you are doing well.
Yes.
Everything is
Yes,
fine.
sir.
Everything was fine as of till the time you entered. Could be okay. So can we start? This is the second set of revision class. The syllabus is so vast that we could not cover everything within 3 hours time frame. Right. So you can now understand just going through the syllabus in a very fast track mode itself is so very difficult. Imagine your position the day before. What is this? What is the screen? Okay. The day before exam, if you can visualize the day, it's so very difficult to cover so many chapters, no? Like 13 chapters just in a matter of 24 hours. It's not so easy because you have to eliminate your sleep, your refreshment time, others, basic things, all those things that you have to do, food, sleep, all those things. So it's very difficult. So what you have to do is, what you should do the day before exam, what you have to do the day before exam, you have to make a note from now only. So when you make a note of those points, you can read only those aspects. So you'll be prepared. So especially the limits, percentages, and some technical aspects where you always get confused. Those concepts you have to make a list and then read it first, and then take up those other chapters. So that's how you have to prepare. ಇವಾಗ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ ಒಂದು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ನಾವು ಅಂತ. ಈ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಬರೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಈಗ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಸರ್ ಓದಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ. ಓದೋದೇ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿರಲ್ಲ. ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಮುಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇವಾಗಲೂ ನಂದು ಓದ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಹಂಗಂತ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವೆನ್ ಯು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಅ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್, ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಪೇಪರ್, RTP of previous sessions, and then MTP ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರ್ಬೇಕು. ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಆ 4 questions, 3 questions ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಒನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಆಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಆಲ್ ಬರೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. So that's what you have to do. Now let's start. Let's start with the prayer. Essay 200.
Overall objectives
Overall
are
objective of independent conduct of an audit in accordance with
The standards on auditing.
Essay 505.
External confirmation.
Information 220.
quality
control and audit of
Financial
statements.
statements.
Quality control and audit of financial statements. Very good. 510.
initial
Initial
audit,
audit
Audit
engagements,
engagements, opening balances.
Audit engagements, opening balances. 320.
materiality,
Materiality in planning and performing of an audit.
Materiality in planning and performing an audit. 500 and 500.
Audit evidence.
Then 550.
Related parties.
Related parties. 240.
the auditor's
responsibility relating to fraud in an audit of
An audit
financial
of financial statements.
Audit and audit of financial statements. 250.
consideration of
laws and regulations.
Regulations in an audit of financial statements.
Consideration of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statements. 580.
Written representation.
Presentations. 560.
Subsequent
Events.
Events. 299.
joint
Audit of financial statements.
Financial statement. 705.
modification
to the opinion in the
any
independent
independent auditor's report.
Modifications to the opinion in the independent auditor's report. 520.
Analytical
critical procedures.
Procedures. 501.
audit
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 evidence.
evidence, specific consideration
Consideration
for
for
selected
selected
items.
items.
Specific consideration for selected items. 210.
agreeing
Agreeing
to
to the
terms
terms
of an audit
audit
engagement.
Agreeing to the terms of audit engagement. 300.
planning
Planning and audit of financial statements.
Planning and audit of financial statements. 590. Not there. Not yet issued. Excuse me. 260.
Communicating with those charged with.
Communication. Communication with those charged with governance. 700.
Forming an
Forming
opinion.
an opinion and
Reporting on the financial statements.
Reporting on financial statements. 530.
Audit sampling.
Audit sampling.
Sampling.
Audit sampling.
230.
Audit
Audit
documentation.
documentation.
315.
Identifying and
Identifying
analysis of
of
material
material
statement to
to
understand the
understanding its
reality.
environment.
Very good. 720.
Auditor's responsibility relating to other
Other information. 710.
Comparative
comparative
information.
information.
Figures
Expanding
and
Financial statements.
610.
using the work of internal
no.
Internal auditor. Using the work of internal auditor. 706.
Emphasis on
emphasis
matter.
on matter paragraphs and other matter
Paragraphs and
Auditor's report.
Auditor's report.
OM and OM in independent auditors report. 701.
communicating
key audit matters in an independent auditor.
Very good. 550.
related
Related parties.
Related parties. 330.
Auditor's response.
auditors response to assess
The auditor's response is to assess risk. See, remember why you have to do substantive procedures, why you have to do compliance procedure is coming from this standard itself. 330. 600.
Using
The work of another auditor.
In the work of another auditor. 220.
quality
quality
control.
control in audit of financial
Quality control in audit of financial statements. 265.
communicating
Differences in internal control, charge governance and management.
Communicating deficiencies in internal control with those with governance and management. These are the standards put together, standards in auditing coming under EQCS. What is common for all the EQCS? SQC1. What is the full form of SQC1? Standards on quality
Standards on quality
control. Important. So that's why that standard is implemented. Now, we discussed a lot of concepts in our last revision class. Now, let's start with the first concept for the day, which is materiality. As an auditor, we are only bothered about items which are material in nature. That's the reason your opinion also covers, to the best of your information and knowledge, according to the explanations given to us, the financial statements are prepared in all material respects and are free from material misstatements. So now this word material is very, very important, because as an auditor, you are driven by the concept of materiality. Now, what do you mean by materiality? What do you mean by materiality? I'm not asking you a technical question.
Which have a significant influence.
Which has significance and influences the
So is that-
decisions of the users. That's all. Same is in accounting standards also. Now, in the context of audit, what are we bothered about? We are bothered about only those material items. So we decide something called materiality levels. Now, when do we decide this materiality?
At the planning stage.
At the planning stage. Very good. The moment we determine the materiality, is it fixed? Is it fixed?
It can
No, sir, it can be varied.
It can change. Very good. See, the materiality can revise. You can revision of materiality is permissible, possible, depending upon the circumstances. As and when the audit progresses, initially you thought something else. Initial assessment of the entity and its environment gave you a different materiality level. As you started your audit, preliminary information, what happens? You think that the materiality level set is not sufficient. So you may revise the materiality. So materiality is not a stagnant one. It can change as and when you progress in the audit. Now, in the context of materiality, as an auditor, you need to be very, very careful. Why? The moment you set the materiality, you will not be auditing, or you will not be focusing on the items which are below the level, below the materiality. So what could happen as a result of this? What is the problem here?
Sir, the items below the materiality limit, together they may become above the materiality limit.
Very good. Individually, these items may not be material. Like we study, no? This chapter comes for 3 marks. The other chapter comes for 3 marks. Next chapter comes for 4 marks. We will leave 3 marks small, no 4 marks small. Individually, when you start leaving all the chapters, when you add up the chapters that you have left, it adds up to 55 marks out of 70. Individually, it may not be material, but when aggregated, it may become material. Same way, individually, the items may not be material. When it is aggregated with the other misstatements, it may exceed the materiality. So how do you overcome this problem? What will you do?
By setting performance materiality.
By setting something called performance materiality. Now, what is performance materiality?
It's a level which is lower than the actual materiality, so that the probability of the aggregate being more material will be less.
Very good. It is the amount or amounts set by the auditor. So can you tell me now whether performance materiality is for compliance, test of controls, or details? Substantive procedure. Test of details, actually.
Detail.
Very good. It is called test of details. Why? Because it's the amount or amount set by the auditor. So in controls, we don't go by anything called amount. It's only whether the controls are working or are there any deviations in the controls. So performance materiality is what is the amount or amounts set by the auditor at less than the materiality level, such that the probability of the uncorrected, undetected misstatements, because you may not know, some items you may not even audit. So how do you know that there is a misstatement? Uncorrected and undetected misstatements exceeds materiality level. Probability of that exceeding is limited. So what will you do? It's like an alarm point for you. The moment it exceeds performance materiality, you perform audit procedures on those items to ensure that at any case, the aggregate of the misstatements does not exceed the alarm level. It is like your in your inventory chapter, there is something called lead time. No, you take that into consideration and you place an order after taking into consideration the lead time, right? So like that, this is also same. This is called performance materiality. Now, how do you determine materiality?
So taking a
Of
percentage
benchmark.
of
Benchmark.
Very good. It is called benchmark. What is a benchmark? Taking a percentage on any of the items of the financial statements would be the starting point to determine materiality. Now, Schedule 3 itself has materiality limits. What is it? Can you give an example? Schedule 3 has this limit, like this benchmark.
1 lakh.
1 lakh or
10% of the revenue, whichever is higher.
1 lakh or how much?
10% of the revenue, whichever is higher.
No, if you tell 10%, you'll get the right side number to the left side of the margin. It is 1%, not 10%. 1 lakh or 1% of the turnover, whichever is higher, should be shown as a separate line item for the disclosure of expenses. First one. Second one, shareholding of people who hold
5%.
5% or more. What is this? This is a materiality limit. So the law has presumed that anybody who holds at least 5% of the stake in a company is considered to be an important shareholder. You may earn 5%, and that if you have 5% stake in Infosys, no, you will not be sitting here. You'll be around sitting at the comfort of your chair at home. Now also you're doing the same thing, but you will not be reading and struggling like this. Correct? No? So this is materiality. Like this, there are a lot of areas where materiality is set by the statutory authority. We have to follow that. Now, what are the factors which affects benchmark is an important concept. Every now and then they ask this question. So you have to read this compulsorily. Factors affecting the identification of an appropriate benchmark in the context of materiality. At inter also they will ask. At final also they will ask. Now, what are the factors?
Elements of financial statements.
Very good. Elements of financial statements. You as an auditor might take turnover. Someone else might take capital. Someone else might take assets. Someone else might take liabilities. Someone else might take profits. Very good. Elements of financial statements.
Nature of the entity.
Very good. The nature of the entity and where the entity in its life cycle. Assuming you're a startup, profits is not a criteria for you to select because profits are always volatile, right? So and they will always have negative profits because they're in the process of going up in the ladder. So for them, revenue is important. See, as all the startups, how do you evaluate a startup based on their revenue generation? If you see this Byju's, Zomato, they have huge revenues, but worst profitability. So people are bothered. As an investor, what will you check? You will check the revenue. So here, the life cycle of the entity. If it's a matured entity, that means the entity's profits are expected to be constant. You probably will take profits as a base, right? So the nature of the entity, the environment in which it is operating, the current economics, all those factors you will consider. Very good.
Ownership and how it is financed.
Sorry.
Ownership and how it is financed.
Very good. The entity's ownership structure and the way it is financed, assuming that there are a lot of borrowings, lot of finances which have come in, your focus will be on those areas, probably the assets. Assuming that a bank is giving a loan, on what basis will it give? On the basis of security of the assets that you give. So you will probably then take the assets as the benchmark, the total property, plant and equipment as the benchmark, or the total of the current assets as the benchmark. If it's all equity financed, probably then what will you take? You will take something else as the benchmark. So the way in which the entity is structured and how it is financed will be an important criteria. Someone said volatility of the benchmark. Very good. What do you mean by volatility?
How often it fluctuates. And
very good. Volatility means fluctuation, up and down, up and down. See, the euro rates are extremely volatile. Compared to dollar, euro rates are extremely volatile. Now currently the rates of exchanges are also volatile. Now, if your profits are affected by these forex exposures, then profit will become up and down every year. 1 year huge profits, 1 year huge loss. So what do? You then will take profits as the base and then consider it as materiality. Correct? No? Nice.
We won't take.
No, sir.
Yes. Naughty. What you're all naughties of the class. If the profits are volatile, will you take that as the benchmark?
No,
sir.
You will not take it as the benchmark. You will take something else. So these are the factors. And then what tends to be focused in by the users. So assuming that if I tell auditing examination is not there, nobody will attend R2R sessions, right? Why? Because it is not focused by ICI. Your attention is driven towards what ICI focuses. Correct? No. Same way, what users tend to focus is what auditors will also keep in their mind. So these are the factors which affects the benchmark. Understood?
Yes.
Now, this materiality is set at the overall financial statements level. That is the principal concept. Materiality is set for the financial statements as a whole. But in some cases, materiality can also be set for specific assertions. Now, this is an important concept. Can you give an example?
Sir, is it like that when you said the shareholders having more than 5%?
Correct?
Have to be disclosed separately.
Correct.
So it's
related party transactions.
Huh? No, everybody will
Related party transactions.
Very good. Related party transactions. Assuming that an item is required to be disclosed in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework, you don't apply the concept of materiality there, the general materiality. When it comes to statutory compliances, will you consider materiality and say all fines and penalties above 5 lakh only I will consider? No, it's not about the amount, it's about the nature. Fine. Why an entity is paying fine? That means there is a non-compliance. What could be the impact of this non-compliance on the entity is what we have to consider, right? So for certain class of assertions, you may set the materiality different from the materiality levels set for the financial statement as a whole. Sometimes you may not even apply the materiality when an item is required by a statute, when an item is required to be disclosed in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework. So these are the points that you need to keep in mind when we are considering the concept of materiality. Now remember the concept of performance materiality. If you know, the same principle you are going to apply in sample. What is the performance materiality for the entire population is equal to tolerable misstatement or tolerable deviation in the case of a sample. You can equate it. You understood? So keep this in your mind. So this is about the concept of materiality, which we could discuss in isolation. That's why I took up this concept. Can we continue?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir.
So what did we discuss last class? We completed till the audit of items of the financial statements, and we also covered the audit in an automated environment. Now I forgot to tell you, in audit in automated environment, there are a few definitions that you have to remember. They might ask you to write a short note on CAT, data analytics, okay, general IT controls. So those key definitions, please go through. Okay, now if you see the RTP release agide gotta?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
RTP, they have asked this part only. So please go through those questions. And beautifully, this time, if you see the MCQ on RTP, they have focused only on 1-220 concept. Have you seen anybody go
Yes.
to RTP? Only 220. The entire case study is based on only 220 questions. I mean, we don't know how they can ask the question. So please be very careful when you read. They're asking what is what. Match madbeku. Very nice question. Please solve. If time permits, we will solve in the class itself. Okay. Now, next is audit of banks. Before that, we will take up audit reports and complete it because it's quite important.
Yes,
Now
sir.
we can discuss audit reports. No, sir, jumble concepts basics. We can discuss any random topic now, right? So audit report. Now we have come to our final deliverable. What is the deliverable? To express our opinion. How do we express our opinion? In the form of a report, and this report is called independent auditor's report. This distinguishes from the other reports that we have. An internal auditor gives a report, a secretarial auditor gives a report, a cost auditor gives a report. But when you use the word independent auditor's report, it always refers to statutory auditor's report. Why is it called independent auditor? Because you are independent. And this audit is conducted in accordance with the statutory requirement. That's why it is called statutory audit. Now, the contents of the audit report is very important. We start with what? We start with the title. Title means independent auditor's report. And then next one will be?
To whom it is addressed.
Address.
Very good. Addressee. To whom the report is addressed. To whom do you address generally?
To the
Shareholders.
Good. To the shareholders. Your report will be addressed to the members of the company. Then what will be there?
Opinion.
Very good. Opinion paragraph. Now direct cut to the chase. No beating around the bush. Finally, sorry, first story. Your responsibility, my responsibility, their responsibility. First everybody opinion. So now it's very important. The moment you use the word opinion, what does it indicate?
Unqualified opinion.
Very good. It indicates unmodified opinion. If you are giving any modification, your opinion should be having that particular phrase. Qualified opinion, adverse opinion, disclaimer of opinion. But if you just say opinion, it means it's an unmodified opinion. Now, what does unmodified opinion contain? It contains first the entity whose financial statements you have audited. Second, the components of the entity's financial statements. Third one is your opinion. Correct? So now how does it be worded? We have audited the accompanying financial statements of ABC Limited or ABC Private Limited, which comprises the balance sheet as at 31st March 2023, the statement of profit and loss for the year that ended, the cash flow statements for the period, statement of changes in equity, optional, and notes to account and summary of significant accounting policies. Within the bracket, we say put together called financial statements. To the best of our information and according to the explanations given to us, the aforesaid financial statements shall give a true and fair view. When do you use the word true and fair view?
When the financial statements are free from material mistakes.
Sorry?
When the financial statements are free from material misstatements.
Very good. When the financial statements are free from material misstatements, okay? At what occasion?
Fair presentation framework.
Very good. You are going to use the word true and fair view when you are auditing financial statements under a fair presentation framework. Correct, no? So the financial statement shall give a true and fair view of the state of affairs. State of affairs means what?
Balance sheet.
Balance sheet.
Balance sheet of the profits or loss, that is the position, and then of the cash flows for the year then ended. And then you're also going to say that we believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide the opinion. And you are also going to say you are independent of the entity and you comply with the thing that you don't follow, which is the code of ethics issued by the ICAI. You're going to say you have complied with the ethical requirements and you are independent of the entity. So this is very simple in a case of an unmodified opinion. Now, if it's a compliance framework, what are the wordings that you're going to use?
In all material.
In all material.
Very good. We are going to use the word it is prepared in all material respects. So you are not going to use the word true and fair view. Very good. And then what will be the next paragraph?
Basis.
Very good. Basis. Now tell me what will be used in the basis? What will be right? The basis of our opinion, if it's an unmodified report. You're going
Audited according to.
Sorry?
Audited according to standards on audit.
Very good. Very good. But why are you so sad? You should be happy when you are saying that we have audited in accordance with standards on auditing. Spurti is very sad. Yo, sir, we followed standards on auditing. That is the biggest problem in life. You are going to state the fact that your audit was conducted in accordance with the standards on auditing issued under section 143 subsection 10. 10 of the Companies Act if you are auditing a company. Right? And then what are you going to say?
Independent report.
Very good. You are also going to state that you are independent of the entity, and the same thing you are going to repeat. You are complying with the ethical requirements issued by the code of ethics. And third, you have so many responsibilities as an auditor that you can't incorporate it in your basis. What will you say? You're going to draw their attention to a section. We are responsible for the matters which are described in auditor's responsibility of our section. Why? Because that has got a lot of inference on your opinion. Because in the process of taking an opinion, you're going to state that you have followed materiality. You're going to state that there is a possibility of fraud. So misstatements could be there even if I have planned and performed the audit properly. And you're also going to state that professional skepticism is exercised. So many concepts are there. So that will be mentioned in the auditor's responsibility section. Please do read together with that is what you're going to state. And finally, you're going to state what? That you have obtained sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. This will be covered in your basis for opinion. After basis for opinion, what will be included?
Going concern.
Going
concern. If going concern is there, is the problem, then you're going to mention about going concern. Now, what are the principles for going concern? Normally, an entity is expected to be a going concern entity unless circumstances indicate otherwise. So there are two parts to it. First, the going concern itself is under jeopardy. Going concern a problem. Second one, Going concern is not affected, but there are a lot of uncertainties in life. I will not die. You don't be happy about it. But I have some problems. I have some ailments, diseases, disorders. So it is not a terminal illness that I have got where I'm contemplating my death. There are two things. Second, ಇನ್ನೆಷ್ಟು ದಿನ ಇರ್ತೀನಿ, ಒಂದು ವಾರ ಇರ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀರಾ ಇವನು ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್, ನಂಗೊಂದು ಕಾಯಿಲೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ನೀವು ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೇನೆ ಅಂತ. ಆದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ನಾನು ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ ಸುನಿಲ್, ನಾನು ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ, ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಡಿ, ಇರ್ತೀನಿ. ಬಟ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ನನಗೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ಅನ್ಸರ್ಟೈನಿಟಿ. ದ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಕನ್ಸರ್ನ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಅ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್, ಬಟ್ ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಸರ್ಟನ್ events and conditions that may cast a significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue as going concern. ಇದಿಷ್ಟು ಹೇಳಕ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವೇನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ಅನ್ಸರ್ಟೈನಿಟಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ an entity might have problems which may have an impact on the going concern, which is called material uncertainty. Or going concern itself is not there. If you read Kingfisher's auditor's report, they say auditors have commented that going concern itself is not there. They are simply stating all those things, but going concern in our view is not there at all. But this is one area which is very, very difficult. Now, first focus on the material uncertainty aspect. Now, if an entity is subjected to material uncertainty, what it should do?
Not follow going concern assumption.
Sorry?
Nothing.
I told you should not keep quiet. You please stop. You said nothing. Why, man? What happened?
No, sir. I said it should not follow going concern assumption in preparing.
No, that's wrong. That's what I'm telling. I'll not die. Material uncertainty is there, but going concern assumption is still appropriate. You're not going to say that the company is not going to be there at all. You're going to say company is going to be, but there are few problems which are facing. So if that is the case, you still have to prepare financial statements under going concern assumption. It is valid. But what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to mention the fact in the financial statements by way of a note. If the entity has appropriately disclosed the fact that material uncertainty exists, what kind of opinion are you going to give?
Sir, we won't take the going concern, like whatever problem is there about the material uncertainty, we won't take that into account per se. We'll still look at everything that's been done so far.
Correct. But why are you giving answer like a politician? I did not get what I wanted. What is my question? My question is very simple. I'll repeat my question because that's what you want. 4 times you want me to repeat question and you'll not answer. So that you can waste some time. Right? Very intelligent students. My friends know. What can you expect? Now, the entity's going concern assumption is valid. First point. Second point, material uncertainty exists. Second point. Third point, entity has appropriately disclosed the fact on the material uncertainty in the financial statements. Considering all these factors, as an auditor, what kind of opinion are you going to give?
Unmodified opinion.
Unmodified opinion. Don't give modified opinion. Remember in class we told modified opinion. Right? But it's not modified because it is appropriately disclosed in the financial statements. But what will you do? Because this is important. People should know that I'm suffering from a big disease. Right? So what you have to do, you have to tell. Same way in the auditor's report, you're going to mention the fact that the material uncertainty exists. Where are you going to use it? Accounts book andre accounts book alle baribeku. Audit na audit book alle baribeku. Audit book ittilla ನಾವು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ book ತಗೊಂಬಂದಿಡಿ. But accounts book ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರಿಬೇಡಿ. ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ವಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಷನ್. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂಥರ ಫೋಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲರ್ಧ ಆಲ್ ಇನ್ ಒನ್ ಬುಕ್ ಅಂತ ಬೇರೆ ಇರೋದು. ಆ ತರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. It has to be mentioned in a separate designated section. So material uncertainty paragraph will be used there. We draw your attention to note XX of the financial statements where the entity has mentioned the events or conditions that has casted a significant doubt on its ability to continue as a going concern. Very important is what? Our opinion. Where is Ritvik? Our opinion is not modified in this respect. Understood? So this is what you will mention in the material uncertainty paragraph. Mind you, going concern is not an area for you to modify your opinion. It is not a substitute for your modification. It is not a substitute for your EOM. It is not a substitute for your KAM. See, what is the difference between EOM and this going concern?
It highlights only the important points, but going concern only says about the company, about it futuristic things.
Very good. EOM is used generally, but going concern is used only when the going concern aspect is affected. So that's the point of difference. It is in another way of emphasizing the fact. That's all. If you technically look at it, EOM is also emphasizing, going concern is also emphasizing. EOM is for all the other purposes. Going concern is for a specific purpose. This is the first situation. Second situation, entity's going concern assumption is still valid and appropriate, but a material uncertainty exists. Entity has not disclosed the fact in the financial statements. What are you going to do?
Qualified opinion.
Very good. You are going to consider qualifying your opinion. Right? You're going to qualify, you are going to issue a qualified opinion. And in the basis, you're going to say that the material uncertainty exists. Management has not represented the fact in the financial statement, as a result of which you are qualifying your opinion. Third dangerous situation, entity's going concern assumption itself is invalid or it's not appropriate, but the entity has prepared the financial statements under going concern assumption. What will you do?
Disclaimer of opinion.
Disclaimer of opinion.
Sir, I didn't understand the questions.
The question is very simple. The entity's going concern assumption itself is not valid. That means entity is not a going concern. Not even material uncertainty. You know for the fact that the entity will not continue at all. There are so many litigations, there are so many problems, there are so many challenges. There is no plan of action which the management has implemented. So for sure, the entity is going to close. Now, but the entity has still prepared the financials under going concern assumption. Current, non-current, what kind of opinion will you give? How will your opinion be given? What type of modification?
Adverse
Discuss, no? Straight away, don't think of any parameters box. Straight away, adverse opinion, not disclaimer. Disclaimer, why you're not supposed to give a disclaimer of opinion? Because you know that you have the information. Disclaimer of opinion will be given when you are not having any information, when you are not able to evaluate whether it is there or not. But here you have information that going concern is not there. So you have to straight away give adverse opinion. Understood? All these factors you have to keep in your mind. Now, in a going concern, what is important? There are factors which might cause material uncertainty, which we have divided into three parts. What are they? Operating, financing, and others. Cash flow statements: operating, investing, financing, operating, financing, others. Operating ayadu. Napka itkondirbek ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ examples. Operating. Loss of
facing losses continuously.
Very good. Continuous losses. Loss of key customer.
Negative cash flow.
Lack of availability of raw materials. See, that's what is happening in Europe, right? They're suffering from huge energy crisis. So if my entity is completely based on an energy-driven activity, I will have a problem. Now they're opening coal mines and other things, but it's a very difficult thing for them to come back easily. So these are the factors. Then what else? Where the suppliers are not extending credit facilities. Correct, no? If the supplier say, you please provide, take goods on COD, then what happens? Your cash, your working capital will be under a problem. Labor issues. If you go to Bengal, every now and then labor problems, right? Labor difficulties. And then there's a big competitor who has come, like how Jio changed the entire telecom sector. There could be some competitor who might change the entire dynamics of your business. So that's an operating activity. And then there's a loss of key management. There was the CEO who was responsible for the success of the business. Suddenly he passed away, or he has moved to a competitor entity. So what happens? You can't replace him. So that causes a problem. So these are the examples. Now financial examples. What are they? Adverse key ratios, cash losses, negative profitability, right? Negative cash flows.
Not able to repay their debt.
Loans. Very good. Not able to repay debts on time. So there are a lot of breaches in those loan provisions. So these are all the examples of financial indications. Others are what? Anything that cannot be classified. For example, non-compliance with a law or a regulation. You are not taking environmental law seriously. So lockout agbodu in factory na muchbudtare. And then there is a law or a regulation which has come in, which has got an adverse impact on your end functioning. So I introduce a law today. So assuming that I'm a plastic manufacturing or plastic oriented entity, now government has come up with an initiative to not to use plastics, ban on plastics. Now I'm a manufacturer of cap form of helmets. Now tomorrow government is is proposing to ban all these cap helmets, right? So then what will I do? So adverse effects, and then catastrophe. Pandemic is a classic example. A lot of businesses have vanished because of this pandemic, unfortunately. So something which is act of God, right? Or disasters, natural disasters, calamities. Once in a century, things like this will come. A century ago, we had plague. Now we have COVID. Next, what we have, we will not know. We will not be there probably. Okay, so these are the examples. This is very important when we talk about SA 570. Now, when the auditor identifies material uncertainty, what is he supposed to do? He is supposed to discuss it with the management and ask him on their plans of action. So you will get two responses. Like if I ask you, have you read? I'll get only one response. No. But management might say, I will ask the auditor, I will ask the management, have you made an assessment? You may get two responses. As what?
Yes, we
Yes,
have.
Yes or no.
If it's no, what you will do? You'll ask them to
Request
extend
to,
or make such request. Apurva says, sir, you have to request, don't ask. Thank you, Apurva. Request is whether have you read. Okay, so now management, if they have not done the assessment, request the management to carry out such assessment. Now, if the management has already performed the assessment, what are you supposed to do? Consider whether management plans of actions are viable, realistic, possible, pragmatic. And that is what you have to check, whether the plans are going to revive the position or it is going to bring down the entity further. You are going to evaluate that. Second point, if the entity's assessment is hugely based on their cash flows projection, that means what they are going to say, sir, down the line 5 years, this is how we look. Because of this, we will be in a position to survive. So if they're projecting cash flows, if their assessment is hugely based on their cash flows, you have to consider the basis and reasoning for those projections. Consider whether they are realistic, whether they are reasonable. And then the reliability of the information is very important. Reliability of the data on the basis of which these projections are made will be important. Understood? There's one specific paragraph in 570 that we have marked, which talks about this. Please go through this. Are you able to connect?
Yes, sir.
This is about going concern. Where are we now? We are actually in auditor's report under going concern. I'm covering the allied standards. Okay. After going concern, what are you supposed to do?
Key audit matter.
Key audit.
Key audit matter. What is a key audit matter? What is a key audit matter? What is key?
Important. One of the most important.
Most significant.
Very good. Most significance, right? Anything which carries assumes significance. Key audit matters are those matters which in the auditor's professional judgment were of most significance. And what is the essential condition for determining anything as a key audit matter?
Should have been communicated with those charged with governance.
Perfect. It has to be communicated with those charged with governance and management. Your key audit matter is a section from those matters that you have already communicated with those charged with governance and management. It is a selection from that area which you consider is extremely crucial and necessary to bring it to the attention of the users. Most significant matters which is the potential opinion. No, not potential opinion. Your opinion is already there. But you considered that these items were extremely important as part of my audit. And very important, key audit matter is not a substitute for modification. Assuming that you have modified your opinion, you cannot bring it in your key audit matter. See, it's like this. You want to modify, but you don't want to modify. So in your opinion, you are going to give unmodified opinion. But in key audit matter, all modifications are introduced there. No, key audit matter is not a substitute for modification. Key audit matter is not a substitute for going concern. Key audit matter is not a substitute for emphasis of matter paragraph. If you think there's a thin line of difference between EOM and key audit matter. Right? And key audit matter is compulsory for listed entities. You have to compulsorily give key audit matters. What is important here again? Your opinion is not modified in this. Why do you always state this? Because as an auditor, you're not going to give individual opinions on the items. Your opinion will always be given on the financial statements as a whole. Are you able to understand? On a specific item, let's say you're not going to give any opinion on revenue. Not going to give any opinion on PPE, not going to give any opinion on contingent liabilities. Your opinion will be covering on the FS as a whole. Understood? And how are you going to determine key audit matters? Consider the concept of materiality, consider the concept of professional judgment. And that paragraph is very important. What are the factors which determines the key audit matter? That area in your material is there. Factors determining key audit matter. That is important. Understood?
Yes.
Yes.
Normally, areas which are having higher risk of material misstatements will be a part of key audit matter. And anything which has got to do with the statutory requirements normally will be considered as key audit matter. And estimation uncertainty, when there are items which are based on estimates, you will normally include it as part of key audit matter. Understood? Now, that's the reason why if you see any listed company's financial statements, their revenue recognition will always be a key audit matter because a lot of judgments are exercised there. Estimates are involved. Some entities' provision for taxation might be a key audit matter because of the complex transactions, and taxation law may be ambiguous. So it might have differing interpretations. So that could be a key audit matter. Next, what is the next area, next section?
Responsibilities for the financial statement, the management.
Responsibilities of the for the financial statements. Okay, management's responsibility. So who is responsible for the financial statements? Management. If you're talking about a company, the company's board of directors are responsible for the preparation and presentation of these financial statements that give a true and fair view in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework and in accordance with the provisions of the Companies Act of 2013 and the rules framed thereunder. They are also responsible for the implementation of internal controls. This is very important. What are the responsibilities of the management? Responsible for financial statements, responsible for the implementation of internal controls, which safeguards the assets, provides effectiveness and efficiency in operations, reliable financial reporting, and compliance with laws and regulations. They are also responsible for overseeing the entity's financial reporting process. Too much for you to process?
No.
No. Third, They're responsible for having this financial reporting process in place, and they're also responsible for overseeing whether the entity continues as a going concern. Tomorrow, they can't ask auditors, auditor, it was your duty to identify whether the entity is a going concern or no. It's not my duty. It's the duty of the entity. I am only evaluating whether their assessment is reasonable. That is my responsibility. Understood? So this is management's responsibility. Next is what? How that ನಿಮ್ದು ಹೇಳಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ.
Auditor's responsibility.
Auditor's responsibility.
This section includes what? Your objective. What is your objective? To obtain reasonable assurance. And you're going to say reasonable assurance is high, but not absolute level of assurance. Why? Because of inherent limitations of audit. As a result of which, there could be a misstatement in the financial statements, even though the audit is planned and performed in accordance with standards. And you're also going to give them the fact that you are focused on material items because audit is driven by materiality, and you're exercising professional skepticism. These are the points that you're going to mention it in the auditor's report. And you're going to say that I have exercised professional judgment in lot of areas. In the areas of materiality, in the areas of obtaining understanding of the internal control, in the area of concluding whether the management's appropriateness of the use of going concern, and to evaluate the overall structure and presentation of the financial statements. There is no specific rule. There is no specific formula. There is no specific guidelines. I have used my professional judgment in these areas in determining whether their accounting policies are consistent, whether their accounting estimates are reasonable and prudent. This is what we will cover in this section. Understood? And remember, we discussed that these auditors' responsibility section may be written, or you can give a reference to the website of the authority where the responsibilities are charted. Normally, we will give it as part of our auditor's report itself. After management auditor's responsibility, what will you do?
Location of the description of auditor's responsibility for the audit of financial statement.
Correct. That's what. So that's what you are going to mention. And then next point is what? Other reporting responsibility. This becomes extremely crucial where in a case of a company, report on legal and regulatory requirements. Now, why auditor is required to give CARO? Where will CARO come? Where will CARO come?
Company audit.
No, in company audit, but in auditor's report, where will CARO?
Other reporting responsibilities.
Very good. It will come in other reporting responsibility. Don't tell it will come. Don't tell it it is going to come as appendix, separate annexure. No, I'm not saying where you are writing it. Saying from which section of your auditor's report is mandating you to do all these things. IFCFR. From which section of your audit report is it coming? Internal financial controls over financial reporting. You are going to give a report. Correct, no? Adequacy and operating effectiveness. Why are you giving? Because it is coming in your audit report, no? That's why you are giving. Otherwise, are you mad to give simply all these reports? No. Which section is asking you? See, you please tell what type of opinion are you giving? Modified, unmodified. Why are you giving like that? Because it is coming in your opinion paragraph. You are telling who is responsible for financial statements. Why are you mentioning that? Because it is coming from your management responsibility section. I am asking you similar question. Internal financial controls over financial reporting is given. From where is it coming? From which part of your audit report is this report emanating from?
Management responsibility.
Is management responsible for IFCFR?
We will check that.
No, you'll check, but why are you giving a report? Which section is asking you to give a report? It is coming from, again, report on other regulatory responsibilities. Why? Report on other regulatory responsibilities is section 143. ತಲೆ ಕೆಟ್ಟೋಗ್ತದೆ, ನೀನೇನೋ ಹುಚ್ಚುಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅನ್ಕೋತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ? Am I talking too much?
No, sir. No, sir.
No, sir.
Harshvardhan, you think so? No? Okay. When he met, he told, sir, ನೀವು ತುಂಬಾ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಾತು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿ. So now, in this section, you are going to cover all the requirements which are provided under section 143. More precise, 143 subsection 3. We have sought and obtained all the information and explanation to the best of our knowledge and belief which were necessary for the purpose of audit. Proper books of account have been made by the entity so far as it appears from our examination. The financial statements agree with the underlying accounting records. The financial statements comply with the mandatory accounting standards. None of the directors are disqualified under section 164 subsection 2 of the Companies Act. This is what will give. In addition to that, there is rules, other matters. What are these other matters? You have to refer to rule 11 of CARO rules. Whether the company has pending litigations. If so, the company has disclosed the impact of such pending litigations on its financial position in the financial statements. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಹುಚ್ಚು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಅವರು. ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಇರಬೇಕು, ರೂಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕು, ಅವಾಗಲೇ ಬರೆಯಕ್ಕಾಗದು. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್, whether the company has any material foreseeable losses, including losses on account of derivative contracts, whether provision is made. Whether has there been any delay in transferring funds to Investor Education and Protection Fund, IEPF. These were there. Next point was very specific to demonetization period. So it is not relevant now. What is the other point? Whether if the company has declared dividends, whether the company has complied with the provisions of section 123. Right. Then comes our favorite area, round tripping. Two areas. One as an intermediary, one as an ultimate beneficiary. Whether has the funds, loans, guarantees, funds, investments transferred to benefit the ultimate beneficiary. Whether that agreement is in writing or otherwise is what auditor should specify. And this information should be there in the financial statements. You have to say whether the entity has represented that in the financial statements. If so, does that statement contain any misstatement? ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೋಬೇಡಿ, ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಆ ಲೀವ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಬಟನ್ ಗೊತ್ತಬೇಡಿ. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಲಾಲ್ ಇದೆ, ಅದನ್ನೇ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. This is if you are an ultimate beneficiary. You are also required to provide if you are an intermediary. Remember one implementation guide bittidare ICR. We solved one case also in the class, right? So that aspect will be covered. Understood? And then lastly, audit trail. With effect from the financial year starting from 1st April 2023, entities are required to use accounting softwares which should have an audit trail functioning. And that audit trail should not be tampered. It cannot be altered. It should have a log of each and every transaction which is recorded in the books of account. And it has to be preserved the same way you preserve the books of account. These points you will mention. In addition to that, 143 subsection 11 requires auditors to report on certain matters provided by the central government, which is CARO 2020. That is why it is coming from report on legal and regulatory requirements. And if you see 143 subsection 3 clause I requires auditors of certain class and classes of companies to provide a report on the adequacy and operating effectiveness of the internal controls with respect to internal financial controls with respect to financial statements. All these will come under this section. Because you can't incorporate everything here, you give a separate annexure. That's all. Understood? And then what are we going to cover?
Signature of the auditor.
Signature. Finally,
Place of
sign. See, if a firm is appointed as an auditor, will the report be signed by the firm?
Any one of the
Or
partner.
a partner.
Chartered
Or any other.
The engagement partner will sign the auditor's report, and then what will you do?
Place of
Place
the
of signature.
Place ಎಲ್ಲಿ sign ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರ ಮಂಗಳೂರ ಮೈಸೂರ ಉಡುಪಿನ ಮಣಿಪಾಲ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ. Next,
date of
Of auditor's report.
date of auditor's report, and very
UDIN.
importantly, UDIN. What is UDIN? Unique document identification number, where it's a number generated by the system which authenticates the documents. Understood? Now, in this process, we missed the emphasis of matter paragraph and other matter paragraph. Now, if in the auditor's professional judgment is of the view that certain aspects which are very important words are what appropriately presented and disclosed in the financial statements that are fundamental to the user's understanding, auditor can draw emphasis of the same. If that is the situation, he is going to make a separate paragraph called emphasis of matter paragraph. How does he write it? We draw your attention to note XX of the financial statements where the entity has disclosed whatever be the point of subject. Very important is what? Our opinion is not modified in this respect. Needless to say, but again I will tell, EOM is not a substitute for modification. EOM is not a substitute for a key audit matter. EOM is not a substitute for going concern. Just to be noted carefully. Now, what is other matter paragraphs? Can you give an example?
Branch auditors.
Which
Very
are
good.
related to financial statements.
Anything that the auditor considers is fundamental to the user's understanding, but it may not be represented or presented in the financial statements, but he wants to draw their attention. Normally, other matter paragraph is used to bring out the responsibilities that the auditor carries. Assuming that you are the joint auditor or you are the principal auditor, where your branches have been audited by different auditors. Now, you don't want to take the responsibility for all those branches. Why? Because it is being that branch is being appointed, has appointed a different auditor who is qualified for appointment as a company auditor, and he has audited it and given the report. Why I should take the responsibility? No, but I have to state it in the report. Otherwise, you people will think that I am responsible for everything, which I am not. Right? So those kind of things will be mentioned in the other matter paragraphs. Let's say we are auditing the consolidated financial statements. I am not responsible for all the subsidiaries' financial statements because it might be audited by different auditors. That I have to mention it in my report. That will be mentioned in the other matter paragraph. Clear? What is the difference between EOM and OM? EOM is compulsorily item which is represented in the financial statement. OM may not be presented in the financial statement. But the auditor is of the view that it is very, very important for users to understand. So that will be given in your EOM and OM section of the report. Now, when we talk about these modification or qualification or advice or disclaimer of opinion, okay, please. What is important? Two parameters. One, misstatement should be material and pervasive. These two factors determine. Remember the chart, the table, matrix table, right? So material and pervasive are the two terms. Second important point, whether sufficient and appropriate audit evidence is obtained or not. Correct. Now, these are the three important criteria that you should keep in your mind, which drives your opinion. Whether sufficient and appropriate audit evidence is obtained, whether misstatement is material, or whether the misstatement has a concept of pervasiveness. So what do you mean by pervasive? It is used in the context of misstatement, which has a far-reaching impact. Understood? Now, if the auditor has obtained sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, which makes him to believe that a misstatement exists, and that misstatement is material but not pervasive, what kind of opinion will he give?
Qualified.
He's going to give qualified opinion. If the auditor has obtained sufficient and appropriate audit evidence and concludes that a material misstatement exists, such misstatement is material and pervasive, what opinion will he give?
Adverse.
Adverse opinion. Why? In both the cases, I have Sai. So I can conclusively say that there is a misstatement. So I will say adverse. You people are very, very bad, horrible, because I have all the information to say. Now, if I am unable to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, look at the wordings, the possible effect of such unavailability in the auditor's judgment is of the view that the misstatement is material but not pervasive. What opinion will he give?
Qualified.
Again, he is going to give qualified opinion. Sufficient and appropriate evidence is not obtained, as a result of which the possible implication in the auditor's opinion is that the misstatement is material but not pervasive. What opinion will he give? He will give qualified opinion. Now, if such impact is material and pervasive, what opinion will he give?
Disclaimer of opinion.
Very good. He is going to disclaim himself from giving opinion. He is going to give disclaimer of opinion. And see, disclaimer of opinion is not a good opinion. Why? Because you're not doing your objective, serving your objective, right? Your objective is to give opinion, but you are moving away from the activity. Such an assurance engagement is not good. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to withdraw from an engagement wherever permissible. Assuming that you're the auditor of listed company, 9 months is over already. Now, even if you want to resign, you can't resign. You have to complete the audit and then only resign. Unless it is a death, we can't do that situation. Understood? So these are the points which are covered under your 705 standard. Your pervasive definition is very, very important. So we covered 700, 701, 705, 706, 570. Incidental to that, we have 700 and not 700, then 560. What is 560?
Subsequent
event. What do you mean by subsequent event? Definition is very, very crucial.
which occurs after the date of the financial statement, but before the date of the auditor's report.
Okay, very good. And the information and the fact which comes to the auditor's knowledge after the auditor's report. Subsequent event is very big, broad. What is a subsequent event? It is the extension of your AS, which is. What is AS5? AS4, no, events occurring after the balance sheet date. Events occurring after the balance sheet date. What is events occurring after the balance sheet date? All those events and transactions that take place from the date of the financial statements till the date the financial statements are signed by the board or the approving authority. All those events are events occurring after the balance sheet date. We classify it into two parts. One, adjusting event and non-adjusting events. Adjusting events are those events which require adjustments to the financial statements. Now, subsequent events are what? This, till the date the auditor signs the auditor's report. Let's say on 15th of June 2023, the board of directors signs the audit financial statements. So till 15th of June 2023, from 31st of March will be events occurring after the balance sheet date. Once board of directors sign, events occurring after the balance sheet date will come to an end. But assuming the auditor signs the auditor's report on 20th of August 2023, what is the subsequent event? From 1st of April 2023 to 20th of August 2023 will be subsequent event. And the fact that comes to his knowledge after he signs the auditor's report, all these will be subsequent events. So subsequent event is very big. So in order to avoid the gap between the date where the board has signs and I sign, because I have to take into consideration these dates, these information, what do we generally do? We sign on the day where board of directors sign the audit, sign the financial statement, sorry. To avoid, otherwise what happens? From that date till the day I sign, I have to take into consideration all the events and transactions which might have an impact on the financial statements and thereby affecting my opinion. You're able to understand?
Yes.
Now, the moment you sign your auditor's report, your responsibility comes to an end. You are no longer required to perform any procedure. This is very, very important. But if you come to know any information, you are reading a newspaper and some information is presented about the company. There is some fraud which pertains to the financial year that you have signed the auditor's report. So that is not an audit procedure that you do. It's just the information or fact that came to your attention. This will be a subsequent. What is your concern as an auditor? Whether are there any subsequent events? How the entity identifies and the processes to identify these events and how they take into consideration in the financial statements is what auditor is concerned. Second, if there is any subsequent event which requires amendment to the financial statement, as an auditor, what will you do? You are going to first discuss that with the management. That there is an event like this which requires amendment, and discuss and consider how they are going to consider or treat this in their financial statements. Wherever permissible, is there a provision for them to amend the financial statements is what we need to evaluate. Now, if so, whether management has carried out such amendment is what I will take into consideration. When those amendments are taken, when those amendments are made by the entity in the financial statements, I am required to audit those amendments. I'm required to audit those amendments and give what? Give an amended auditor's report, stating the fact that this opinion or my report is amended to consider those events and conditions which took place during X and X period, which the amendments have been carried out in the financial statements. So in any case, your amended auditor's report will always be after the date of your initial audit report and the amended financial statement. This is a very simple thing. Management is also okay. You are also audited. You have also audited it. You gave an amended auditor's report. In that case, you will have a separate date. So that's why it is called dual dating. Remember this concept, dual dating. Now, assuming that there is a subsequent event, we are going to discuss the fact and matter with the management. Now, if management refuses to carry out those amendments, what are you going to do?
Consider the implications of that.
Very good. Consider the implications on your opinion. If I was aware of this information earlier, I would not have given an unmodified opinion. Then state the fact that this opinion may not be suitable for the users if the financial statements are already circulated to the users. If the financial statements are not yet circulated, inform the board or the management that this auditor's report should not be circulated to the users. Why? Because I would have changed my opinion now if I were aware of this information in the past. Now, assuming that the financial statement is already circulated, what you're supposed to do, inform the entity to inform the users to whomever these reports have been circulated that it is not suitable. Please do not take any inference from this report. When is this? This is before AGM and the financials have been circulated. Now, assuming that the financials are circulated, AGM is also there, and then you have come to know where it is not practically possible for informing shareholders. Tomorrow is the AGM. You have gotten to know the information today. I mean, we are all discussing extremely rare circumstances. You may not appreciate these factors, but law, when I'm framing a law, I have to keep in mind all these aspects. No? So that's why law says, please mention or inform in the general meeting that these are the circumstances which have changed, as a result of which the opinion, whatever I have given, is not suitable for your understanding. When you have gotten to know this information after AGM, what you should do, you need not do anything because it's beyond anybody's control. This is all is there in essay 560. Understood? Clear?
Yes, sir.
So the definition of subsequent event is very important in this whole essay. Because what is a subsequent event determines your activities. So they might ask you in MCQ, they might give you dates and then they might ask you to identify what is a subsequent event. Okay. Now we have covered all these incidental standards. Now this is about audit report. Now the hot cake in the audit report is what? CARO. Right? So let's discuss CARO. Can we discuss? CARO is very important. I've told you CARO is very important. Let's discuss CARO. Part of our auditor's report. Now, CARO applicability. To who, which are all the entities CARO is applicable?
Every company, including foreign companies, under section 2+45.
Very good. Every company, including foreign company incorporated in the Companies Act. Very good. It's not applicable for which entities?
OPC, small company, section 8 company,
One-person company, right? Then
small company,
Banking company.
small company, very good. Banking company is very good. Insurance company, yes.
section 8 company,
Section 8 company, very important. Then
Private company,
private
subsidiary of a public company, and
that is important. And having paid up capital and reserves not exceeding 1 crore. I mean, sorry, when we're discussing non-applicability, that means not exceeding 1 crore. And turnover
not
exceeding
10 crores.
When are you supposed to check this? When are you supposed to check this? In the current financial year, not previous or latest audited balance sheet, the current financial year only. And very important, borrowing from banks and financial institutions at any
does
point
not
exceed
1 crore.
1 crore. This is very important. For these entities, CARO is not applicable. Now here we have to be very careful. The definition of small company is widened. That means the limits have increased. I am a small company, but my turnover is more than 10 crores or my capital is more than 1 crore. Then CARO is applicable?
Yes, sir, because it doesn't small company then.
No, even then the exemption continues to apply. If you are a small company, but your turnover or your capital is in excess of the limits provided to a private limited company, even then, CARO exemption will not be taken away. CARO will be exempted. Reporting will be exempted. See, because I am giving you in one place an exemption, I cannot withdraw. I cannot take it back in the other door. It looks so bad, no? I give you 1,000 rupees now as a gift. After the ceremony, I ask you to give it back. How bad it is. Correct, no? ಎಲ್ಲರ ಮುಂದೆ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡು ನಂಗೆ 1,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಸೇವೆ ಹಂಗೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬೈತಾರೆ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಅವರು ಕ್ಲಾರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. It is clarified in guidance note that the exemption continues to apply. Understood? All of you are comfortably sleeping?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Now, CARO is also not applicable on the consolidated financial statements. The reporting is not applicable. Now, CARO 2020 has how many clauses?
21
clauses. What are the clauses? Fill the cost records, take the DD, pay the PF of NR in INR because it's a credit for you, and all these questions will be asked in MCQ. So all these are the clauses. First one, F, fixed assets, property, plant and equipment. What are covered here? Physical verification of the property, plant and equipment, whether registers are maintained properly. Third point, in the case of immovable property, title deeds are in the name of the company. Fourth point, are there any Benami transactions entered into by the company, and are there any proceedings initiated? 1 point covers on the intangible assets. Now, PPE, what is the requirement? Physical verification should be reasonable. They have not specified every year physical verification is to be done. It is based on the size of the entity. They have to decide. You as an auditor should consider whether it is reasonable. Whether it is reasonable. Then the next one is inventory. What is covered in inventory? Whether the entity has performed the physical verification of the inventory. And if they've identified any discrepancies, and if these discrepancies are in excess of 10%, here materiality is given. 10% limit nap katkobeku MCQ barbodu. 10%, then those discrepancies, how they have dealt with in the books of account, auditor is required to report. That is the first part. Second part, if an entity has taken any working capital loans, where the sanction, understand it very carefully, sanction limit. Yak sanction limit, you may not have actually availed the loan, but you have been sanctioned with 8 crores loan. You might have taken just 3 crores loan. You're able to understand? Even then, this clause will be applicable. Why? Because what is the word that they've used? Sanctioned. Where the sanction limit is in excess of 5 crores on the basis of the inventory, whether quarterly returns are being submitted by the entity. Are there any discrepancies? If so, the reasons whether they have mentioned in the financial statements is what you have to provide here in clause 2. So these are covered in your inventory. The next two talks about LGS side, loans, guarantees, securities, investments. The first one, whether the loans are prejudicial to the interest of the entity, whether the repayment schedules are proper, whether the entity is regular in receiving the money. If not, what are the steps that they have taken? Whether the loans are given on the basis of proper security is what you have to mention in this clause. The next clause talks if the loans and investments are in compliance with section 185 and 186 of the Companies Act. These two sections talks about loans to few parties. 186 talks about investments. Now today you can't have more than 2 layers of investment. 2 layers of investment, and one entity invests in another entity, that entity further invests in another entity. 100%. That entity can't further invest now. This is a layer. Yakendre money laundering ella ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ 10 ಕಂಪನಿ ಫ್ಲೋಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡುದು. ಈ ಕಂಪನಿ ಆ ಕಂಪನಿ ಆ ಕಂಪನಿ ಆ ಕಂಪನಿ ಆ ಕಂಪನಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಂಪನಿ ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ಕಂಪನಿ ಮಗದೊಂದು ಕಂಪನಿ ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ದುಡ್ಡು ಹಾಕೋದು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲೋಗೋದು ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಂಗೆ ಬರೋದು. ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಹುಚ್ಚುಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ, 2 ಲೇಯರ್ ಗಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟುಡ್? ಇವಾಗ ಒಂದು ಬರ್ಗರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಚಾಕ್ಲೇಟ್ 2 ಲೇಯರ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರೀಮ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಈಸಿ, 3rd ಲೇಯರ್ ಕ್ರೀಮ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ತಿನ್ನೋದ್ ಕಷ್ಟ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಡ, ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ ನೀವು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ fill the. Next one is about deposits. See, deposits you can't freely do and make use of the money, whether the company has complied with the provisions of section 73 to 76 of the Act, which talks about deposits. And if any order is passed by RBI, National Company Law Board, now which is the tribunal, whether the directions have been followed, directives have been followed by the entity, is what you have to mention in this particular clause. Understood? Fill the cost records. Clause 6 talks about, am I going too fast?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Cost records. What is important here? Whether the company has made and maintained cost records. It is not talking about cost audit. There are 2 limbs. One cost records, and another one is cost audit. Here you are only required to comment whether the entity is required to maintain cost records. If so, whether they have so been made and maintained, so far as it appears from your examination. Fill the cost records. Take again the DD. The first D is about statutory dues. 2 are marks: disputed statutory dues, undisputed statutory dues. Undisputed statutory dues, whether the entity is regular in paying all the undisputed statutory dues. And are there any dues which are outstanding for a period of how many days?
Months.
6 months as at the from the date they became payable as at the balance sheet date. So the age of the statutory due should be 6 months. Let's say on 20th of February 2023, I had to pay GST. Correct? No, January, I will have to pay GST by 20th of February. Assuming that I have not paid this due so far, and it will be outstanding as at 31st of March, should I have to report that here?
No, sir.
No. Why? Because it is not outstanding for a period of more than 6 months. Right? So please be very careful what you should not report. ಎಲ್ಲ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಾರ್ದು. ನಾನೇನೋ ನಿಮ್ಗೊಂದು ಗುಟ್ಟು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡ್ಬಾರ್ದು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರನೇ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ. ಅದೇ ತರ. Next. The next part is about disputed. What do you mean by disputed? What is essential to call some due as a disputed due?
Court case is still going on.
Sorry?
Non-payment.
Non-payment. See, you are not ready to pay. That doesn't mean that you are disputing. You know that it is payable, but you are not paying. Will that be disputed?
Some sort of
Filing and
litigation should be going.
Sorry?
Litigation.
Appeal should be.
Tax is not.
Litigation. Taxes not paid is not the criteria which determines whether it is disputed or undisputed. An appeal should be preferred. That is the criteria. What do you mean by appeal? Manavi. I am requesting the higher authorities challenging the orders passed by the lower authorities. If income tax officer, the assessing officer has passed an order, I am not happy with the order. Just because you are not happy, I can't call it as undisputed. You are simply sitting. It is not disputed. You have to prefer an appeals before commissioner. ಹೋಗಬೇಕು commissioner of income tax appeals ಗೆ ಫೈಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು appeal papers ನ. I crave, I pray ಅಂತ. Commissioner ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾನೆ. No, I will confirm what my officer has said. Then you can't sit quiet. You have to go to tribunal. Tribunal ಮೆಟ್ಲತ್ತೀರಾ. Tribunal order pass ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. Finally ಸಾಧನೆ ಹೈಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಮೆಟ್ಲೇರಿದ್ರಿ. Finally ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಸ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಕಾಲತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಂಗೆ ಇವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಆಫೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಹೈಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಹೋಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಇವಾಗ we have challenged this order in the high court. High court also passes an order in your prejudicial to your interest. What do? Go to Supreme Court. Supreme Court order pass ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ನಿಮ್ ವಿರುದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮನೆಗೆ ಬರ್ಬೇಕು ವಾಪಸ್ ಡೆಲ್ಲಿಯಿಂದ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್ ಹತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಗೆ ಬರ್ಬೇಕು. Right? You can't do anything. The essential criteria is what? An appeal should be pending. That is when you call it as a mere representation to the department is not considered as a dispute. What are you supposed to do? Are there any disputed dues? Is the first thing that you will tell. Under which act the dues are disputed, for which financial year does it pertain to, what is the amount that is involved, which forum is it pending. Forum andre which institution where the appeal is pending. Appeals tribunal high court Supreme Court. So that is what you are going to report in dues. Next, second D is undisclosed income. Bandre nim manege nam relatives undisclosed income ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆ clause ಬರುತ್ತೆ. If you have disclosed any income which was earlier not disclosed as part of the search and the seizure operations, how you have dealt with that income in your financial statement is what auditors are required to comment. Undisclosed income, what is the treatment that they have given in the books of account when it is disclosed as part of the search proceedings. Fill the cost records, take the DD, then take the DD. Next is defaults in repayment of loans, interest to banks, financial institutions. Lender-wise details you need to provide. For how many days was it outstanding? How many days is it outstanding? All these details you need to provide as an auditor. Next, pay the PF. P talks about private placement, preferential allotment, whether the entity, if they've issued any shares or securities under this route, whether the provisions of section 42 is complied with or not, is what you have to mention. Then F talks about fraud. Whether fraud on the company or by the company is committed. If so, whether the reporting under 143 subsection 12 read with rule 13 is made. Whether form ADT3 is filed. Whether you have reported it to the board of directors.
4.
Sorry, ADT4. What did I tell?
ADT3.
ADT4. Whether it is filed on time. What are the steps that the management has taken? All those things will be reported in this clause. Then N talks about Nidhi company. What is important here? Whether the Nidhi company is maintaining the net owned funds to
Deposits ratio. Understood.
ratio. What is the ratio?
1:20.
Very good. 1:20. Whether they are maintaining. Second point, whether the Nidhi company has at least 10% in unencumbered term deposits, and whether the repayments are regular. When the dues are, when the amounts are due for repayment, whether the Nidhi company has repaid it. Are there any defaults in those repayments? What is the time? All those things will be mentioned in this particular clause. R talks about
Related parties.
Whether the related party transactions are in compliance with section 177. What is 177?
Audit committee.
Very good. Audit committee. There are a few classes of entities which are required to constitute audit committee. All listed companies, unlisted public companies, only unlisted public companies having paid up share capital of 10 crore or more is required to have audit committee. Now, all the related party transactions should go through the audit committee and their approval, whether it is there. And in any case, section 188 compliance and whether the disclosures are made in the financial statements is what auditors are required to comment upon. In INR, I talks about
Internal audit.
Internal
audit. Whether the entity has an internal audit mechanism commensurate to the size and the nature of the entity. If so, internal audit is being carried out properly. How you have dealt with the reports of the internal auditor, whether you have taken the reports or not. If you have taken, how you have used that in your audit is what you have to mention. N talks about
Non-cash
transactions under the provisions of section 192.
192.
Whether it is in accordance with that section. Non-cash transaction means what? Assuming a director for the services that he has given has taken a car. He had a car. He has exchanged with the entity for some other asset. These are all non-cash transactions where there is no movement of cash. Cash andre bari cash alla. Bank balance kuda include agutte. Understood?
Yes.
Next.
Yes, sir.
INR. R talks about registration under section 45 IA of the RBI. Actually, there are a lot of entities, which mainly NBFCs, CIC. CIC andreno?
Core investment
company.
Very good. Core investment company. If you are a core investment company or if you are an NBFC, you cannot carry on the business unless you have obtained the registration from the RBI. Now, for CIC, core investment company, there are certain exemptions. Assuming that your asset base is less than or equal to 100 crore, then you need not take the registration. Now, whether you continue to fall under that exemption category is what I have to evaluate as an auditor. And that is what will be reported there. Then, and if there is any CIC in the group, that needs to be reported. Remember, assuming that I am a CIC, I have a subsidiary, which is also a CIC. So I have to tell how many entities are CIC as part of my group. So here I will tell 1, not 2. Remember 1. This clause is applicable only if you are a CIC. You cannot include yours. You include only the further entities which are a part of the CIC group. Next is about credit. C talks about cash loss. So entity has incurred any cash losses during the year immediately preceding financial year, 2 years. You have to report. Cash loss means what? Your net profits, add back depreciation, add back all the non-cash transactions. Whatever result you get, that will be your cash profit. If it's a negative item, you have to report it in this clause. CR. R talks about resignation. Are there any resignation of the statutory auditors? So this will be applicable whenever there is a resignation. Otherwise, this clause will not be applicable. The incumbent auditor, the casual vacancy auditor will state that there was a resignation by the statutory auditors and they have to provide the reasons for those resignation. Understood? Then all these questions will be asked in MCQ. M talks about material
uncertainty.
the aging based on the financial ratios, whether auditors are of the view that are there any material uncertainty that exists which casts a significant doubt on its ability to continue as a going concern. That is what will be mentioned. Then talks about very important clause CSR, whether the entity is required to contribute any funds to or is required to comply with the provisions of corporate social responsibility under provisions of section 135. There are two things: ongoing projects, right? And then projects which are completed. If in case of ongoing projects, if the funds are not utilized, you have to deposit in the designated accounts. And whether the activities that you are carrying out falls under the permissible CSR activity. Schedule number
7.
Very good. Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. All these things will be mentioned in this clause. And then lastly, Q. Q talks about qualifications by the auditors of the entities which are included in the group financial statements, assuming that this entity has 2 subsidiaries, 3 associates, 1 joint venture, and the CARO of those entities provided by the auditors, that if it contains any qualification, the clause number you have to draw in your main auditor's report. Understood? Clear? CARO is very important, especially the applicability and these clauses. Remember in class we had made some important clauses like property, plant and equipment, inventory, borrowings, and then private placement, preferential allotment, statutory dues, undisclosed income. All those things are important at inter level. There are 185, 186 related things, CIC, Nidhi company. They're not so relevant for your examination, but you should know at least that the standard or a reporting like this exists. Understood? So we covered CARO as well. Now, with this, we complete the audit report and the allied standards. Any confusion? Anybody has a doubt? No doubts? No doubts. Okay, let's move on. So after this, we will now move on to audit of banks, which is very important chapter. Again, a small chapter, a compulsory question. So audit of banks, you can't apply the same, the principles broadly will be same, but you can't apply all the regular principles that you apply in an audit of a general company. Why? Because of the complexities involved in a bank. What are the complexities involved? Peculiarities is what the words used in the study material. So what are the peculiar? Benami transaction. See, Benami transaction means what? I purchase property in your name, but the money and the required resources is funded by me. But it's just that the property is in your name. You are an identified person. In some cases, unidentified persons also, I would have purchased property. These are all Benami transactions. What is your concern as an auditor? See, there is a law, Prohibition of Benami Transactions Act of 1971, if I'm not wrong. Now, if the department comes to know that you have entered into these transactions, they will initiate the proceedings. They will give you notice. They would ask you, because it's a violation of a law. So they will take some actions. Now, if those proceedings are initiated, first, the responsibility is on the entity. The entity is required to report it in the financial statements that proceedings under Benami Prohibition Transaction Act is initiated. If that is the case, then in your auditor's report, you will specify there are proceedings that have been initiated on the company under the Prohibition of Benami Transactions Act. It is very simple. Now, assuming that you come to know that there are Benami transactions which the entity has entered into and proceedings have been initiated, but the entity has not mentioned that in the financial statements, then they'll ask, you mention it in the audit report. You mention it in CARO. Understood? So that is about Benami transaction. So you need not go and check whether Benami transactions are there. You're only required to check whether are there any proceedings initiated under Benami. That's all. If you see CARO clauses, most of the clauses are propriety clauses. We discussed when we initially started audit, auditor will not get into propriety elements or propriety aspects. Correct? No? I will not go on deciding on checking on the viability of your decisions. I am only bothered whether accounting is done properly. We gave an example also. If you are purchasing goods from a particular vendor, as an auditor, I'm not at all bothered why you are purchasing from this vendor, at why this price or why this quality of product. I am not bothered. All that I am bothered is whether these purchases is accounted properly or not. But if you see CARO, so many clauses requires you to ask whether are they prejudicial to the interest of the company. It is a propriety element. The entity has given loan. But why am I supposed to ask whether the loan is in the favor or in the interest of the company or not? I normally don't ask because it's propriety. But law requires you to extend your audit on these aspects. Understood? Similarly, we have certain propriety elements under Companies Act. What is it? (143) subsection 1. Inquiry points. There are 6 points. Remember, propriety aspects under Companies Act. Why are you so forgetful? Remember, you don't remember this, whether loans and advances made by the company are prejudicial to their interest, whether transactions are represented by book entries are prejudicial to the interest of the company, whether the company has shown loans and advances as deposits, whether the company not being an investment company, so much of its assets consists in the form of shares and securities have been sold at a price lesser than the price at which they were purchased. Where the company has issued any shares for consideration in cash, whether the cash is actually received, if not, the position is appropriately shown. Whether personal expenses have been charged to revenue account. Personal expenses under Yardu, directors or the employees of the KMP. Understood? These are all the propriety elements under the Companies Act. Here. Now, what are the peculiarities that we come across in a bank? Huge transactions, wide geographical coverage, numerous products and services, multiple laws and regulations, compliance with them is required, and then huge reliance on IT. These are all the peculiarities that we see mostly in the case of a bank, not in any other case of any other entity. That makes your audit also difficult. Now, what are the requirements? Very important is the appointment. So there are different types of banks, right? There are different types of banks: payment banks, commercial banks, scheduled banks, foreign banks, right? So appointment is different for cooperative banks. Appointment is different for different forms of banks. Now, can we please discuss that? Are you all there? Are you all bored?
Yes, sir. Also.
Yes, sir.
What to do if you're bored? You want me to sing a song?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
After we complete this revision, we will sing.
So you're telling this from last 2 batches, but you didn't.
That's what you should earn. That you people have not earned it yet. I have been telling this in the class. You should do something which gives you that badge where I will sing. Okay. Now, who will appoint? In pass out meet, yeah, biscuits, yeah. That's what I'm giving you one hint. In MCQs, there will be Oreo, there will be pedigree. Even if you are so hungry, you should not eat pedigree. Correct? No. Assuming that there is a dog at your home. Okay. Your parents or you would have gotten pedigree. If you are hungry and there is nothing to eat, will you eat pedigree?
Oh,
No, even in that case, you will remain silent. Same way, MCQs also will have a lot of biscuits, pedigree biscuits. Even though you feel that it is the right answer, you should not select it. Okay, you're hungry. You have all valid reasons to eat pedigree. But will you eat pedigree? You will not eat pedigree.
yes, sir.
That's what it is. Now, Same way, I have also given a lot of biscuits. You should not eat. Now, first point, nationalized banks. Who will appoint the auditors of nationalized banks?
Board of Directors.
Very good. Board of Directors with the approval of RBI. Approval of RBI ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ನಾನು ಪಾರ್ಟಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಲಾ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಅಪ್ರೂವಲ್. ನಾನು ಪಾರ್ಟಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೀನಿ, ಬರ ಲೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಪ್ರೂವಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಇಂಟಿಮೇಷನ್. So you should not intimate, you should take approval. Same is the case for removal of auditor. Remember, we had a discussion whether you have to first take the approval and pass special resolution, or then pass special resolution and then take the approval of central government. What you should do?
First take the permission.
And then
approval and then
First CG approval ಬಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ special resolution. ಎಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗಲ್ಲ. ನೀನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ಯಾ, ಮತ್ತೆ ನಂಗೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರ ನೀವು ಬಂದು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಏನಕ್ಕೆ? ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಮಾತು ಕೇಳ್ದೆ ನಂಗೆ ಏನು ಮೀರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಾಗೋಗಿದೆ, ಇನ್ನೇನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು? ಹಂಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೇ here you have to take the prior approval of the RBI before you could appoint the auditor. Next, banking companies, general banking companies,
Members.
shareholders.
Shareholders with the prior approval of RBI. SBI is always different. Namtara, who will appoint the auditors of SBI?
C&AG.
Very good. C&AG in consultation with central government. Right? Because central government and RBI is separate alva. Or ivrgagala ivrgagala. Hange. Next. Agala antala YouTube al bere hokkari. Ellaru chennagidi nam desali, ella harmony ide nam desali. Correct. No, RBI is in sync with what finance ministry says, finance ministry is in sync with what economy is all about. So we are going in a proper direction. Next, subsidiaries of SBI.
SBI parent.
SBI.
Point. Who will appoint the auditors of cooperative banks?
Board of Directors.
Why are you so sad, Prithvi? You should tell it with happiness. Sir, it will be appointed by bank, board of directors. It is your appointment. You people are so sad for your appointment only. See, normally as a student of audit, you should be happy when someone talks about your appointment, someone talks about your remuneration. See, nothing is enticing. I don't know what makes you happy and be active. Which concept in audit? I mean, there are so many concepts that makes you happy and active, but which concept in audit makes you very active, happy? I was not able to, figure it out. Okay. Now, normally in your audit report opinion you will give. In addition to your opinion, you're going to cover 4 aspects in a case of a nationalized bank. What are they? Question. Sorry, I have to answer. No. Now, whether the auditors have received all the information and explanation which was necessary for the purpose of his audit, whether he has obtained. Second point, whether the banking operations are within their powers. Remember, treasury operations, forex operations is not carried out at all branches. It is carried out only at designated branches. Now, if this entity, even though it is not supposed to carry out forex, it has carried out forex. So that you have to mention. And then whether branch reports have been perused and how you have dealt with. This will be applicable in the case of a SCA. SCA andre no?
Statutory central auditor.
Very good. Statutory central auditors. There are 2 forms of auditors. One is SCA and another one is branch auditors. All the branches will be audited by different auditors, but the entire consolidated financial statements of the bank as such will be audited by different persons, and they are called statutory central auditors. If you are a statutory central auditor, then this also will be coming. Then your favorite area, my favorite area, any other matter that the auditor wants to bring it to their attention. So these are the points which we will cover. Now, in addition to your audit report, you are required to give certain certificates, certain other reports. What are they? G, बताइए.
List G.
List G.
List G. ಅಪ್ಪ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡಾದ್ರು ಹೇಳಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಬೇಜಾರು.
Long form.
Long form audit
Very good.
report.
L talks about long form audit report. What is the due date for submission of long form audit report?
30th June.
30th June every year. Second one, I.
Internal financial control.
Internal financial.
Report on the internal financial controls. S.
SLR compliance.
Compliance with SLR compliance, statutory liquidity ratio. There's actually that will be done at the head office. That means the bank statutory central auditors will do this SLR compliance. Now, on a random day, 12 random days, they have to check, which is not a Friday. Why? Because Friday the limits will change. How will SLR work? See, they will take the week's average deposit position and they will make the investments in those deposits. So it will change every Monday. It will change. I mean, it will change. The balance will change on Fridays. Actually, it will change. So other than Fridays, on a random 12 days in a month, 12 days in a year, you have to take and check the compliance. So that is there at CA5. Next.
Treasury operation.
Good. Whether the treasury operations are all proper and are within the limits. Next. G.
Ghosh committee.
Very good. Whether the compliance with the Jilani and Ghosh committee recommendations are followed by the entity. Next.
Report on irregularities if identified.
Very good. Report on irregularities identified, if any. Next.
Compliance with IRAC
norms.
Very important. Compliance with IRAC norms. IRAC andre no?
Income
recognition and asset classification.
Very good. Income recognition and asset classification. Prudential norms iruttala, standard, substandard, provisions on NPA ella martivala, heg martivi, yak martivi. It's coming from these IRAC norms. Whether the IRAC norms are proper. In the case of rural banks, are there any adverse deposit ratio? That is there additionally, which is not there in list G. Okay. These are the reports that you give. Next, fraud reporting, including money laundering activities, assumes significance in a bank because bank is one of the important bridge in our nation's economy. So now fraud reporting, compliance with SA 240 you will do, taking into consideration 143.12 if you are a auditor of a banking company. In addition to that, how do you check on the money laundering activities? Mainly KYC norms. Know your customer. Very, very important in a bank. Bank cannot afford to breach or violate KYC norms. Your account you would have only experienced it, right? Your parents' account, with your account for that matter, would have been frozen because you would not have submitted KYC documents, right? It's very important. And then remember, see, in a bank is also required to report it to the enforcement directorate on any irregular transactions. Assuming that I go and deposit, my account is very, very small. I'm a small person. My bank balance has never crossed 1 lakh. Suddenly, if I go and deposit 10 lakh rupees to my account, the bank will have to report it to the ED, Enforcement Directorate. Okay, that doesn't mean that I have committed money laundering activity, but it's a reporting requirement. Assuming tomorrow they get to know some information about me in different sources, how has he deposited 10 lakhs? It could be proceeds of crime. And then they would investigate further. So banks are required to report it. So this is what you have to comply with. Understood? Next.
Yes.
When you're doing an audit of a bank, the team is very, very important. Correct? No? The engagement team is very, very important. And what you're going to discuss with your engagement team is even more important. On the huddle anta ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, IT ಕಂಪನಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕಾಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ತುಂಬಾ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಡಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಎಲ್ಲ ಗುಂಪಾಕೊಂಡು ಬರೋದು. ಏನ್ ಮಾತಾಡೋದು? ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಊಟ ಮಾಡೋಣ, ಎಲ್ಲಿ ತಿನ್ನೋಣ, ಇವತ್ತೇನ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ, ನಾಳೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗೋಣ. What are we going to discuss in the engagement team discussions? Mere PF. We are only going to discuss about PF. Only PF. And what is M? Misstatements which have occurred in the past. You have to tell the engagement team that these were the misstatements that were there in the past. So you be very careful. Remember, we took the example of PNB. Assuming that you are the auditors for the next year where the fraud was discovered, you know what area you have to focus on. Then E, errors which are likely to occur. There is a possibility that you would go wrong in calculating diluted EPS exam because it's very tricky, right? Like that. Then R talks about what?
Response.
Auditors' responses to pervasive risk, specific risk, and engagement risk. How is he going to address all these risk factors? Then E, errors which have occurred in the past. One is errors that are likely to occur, errors which have occurred in the past, and misstatements that you have identified. These are the 3 areas. Next, P,
Professional skepticism.
Professional skepticism.
Fact and the need for you to maintain professional skepticism throughout your audit is what I will discuss with my engagement team. And then frauds. Very good. What are the frauds that have taken place in the past, and what are the methods through which they have perpetrated the fraud, and who are the parties involved? All those things I am going to discuss it with my engagement team. Okay. Now, what are the benefits out of this discussion? You can emphasize on fraud risk factors. First, specific emphasis can be provided for fraud risk areas. Auditor, as an auditor, I can delegate work. See, when I discuss with my team, I know the strengths and weaknesses of my each individual member. So which area to whom I can give, so that it will become easier for me to monitor the activity so that the engagement is conducted properly. And then I will also assess, is there a need for me to engage any expert? These are the benefits that I'm going to get on account of engagement team discussion. Now, in a bank, when we talk about bank is subjected to lot of risk. Correct, no? Lot of risk factors they are subjected to. Now, as a bank, they should have an effective risk management process. You agree? If there is a risk, they should manage. You have stress management. Correct, no? You have money, finance management. So for me, there is no finance management because no money. Right? So I'm not bothered about it. I need not engage an expert or a professional who could manage my finance, because finance itself is not. Now, what are the elements that those charged with governance are going to consider in engagement, entities risk management process? We need to be very proud about our ICMR. Our ICMR talks about what? Oversight of those charged with governance and management. If they don't participate, obviously nobody will give importance to it. Right? Then I talks about what? What does I talk? Sorry?
Identification.
Very good. Identification of the risk. What are all the risk factors that the entity is subjected to? I have to identify the risk. I have to measure the risk, and I have to monitor the risk. Identify, measure, monitor comes together. First I have to see, then I have to measure it, then I have to monitor it. Right? Then
Control.
I see. Control activities. What can you give an example for a control activity?
SOD.
Very good. Segregation of duties, maker checker, authorizations, reconciliations. All of them are the examples, right? Our ICM talks about monitoring the activity. Yes, control activities are there, but I have to monitor whether these activities are all carried out with the achievement of objectives. Then R talks about
Reliable information system.
very good. Reliable information system. If the information is not proper, then whatever I do will also be wrong. This is very important. Understood? Now, as part of the preliminary activities of your audit, what are you supposed to do? First, independence. How do you ensure independence? Declaration of indebtedness. Correct, no? If you are proposed to be appointed as an auditor of a bank, you should not have any loans in that particular bank. Very important. Second, you need to take the approval, or you need to seek the permission from the predecessor auditor. Right? Yes or no? You have to communicate with the previous auditor that, do you have any objection in me taking the assignment or appointment, because we are not business people. On client unfair means I am a professional. I am bound by my regulatory requirements. So I have to communicate with the predecessor auditor and obtain his concurrence. Right? So that is what I have to do. And then I have to understand the bank's accounting process. If you just give me a few seconds, I will connect my system to the charger. Okay, I'm very sorry. So you need to understand the bank's accounting process, bank's internal control, and the risk assessment process that you follow. That is what you will do. And then finally start with the audit. Now, when you start your audit, you always want to take the precedence. That means what? You'll start your work with the previous year activities. Now, if you are writing your examination, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to read the material. You're supposed to solve previous year papers, previous year revision modules. Why? Because it always acts as a base. On that basis, you can determine what could be, how the exam could be. Same way, as an auditor of a bank, you will rely on the previous reports. What are the previous reports that you would check? Previous auditor's report, latest inspection conducted by the RBI, reports of the concurrent auditor, reports of the internal auditor, any other reports that are prepared specifically with regard to the bank. And if there's any change in the management, assuming that I was the manager, I retire, I have to make a report, status report, pending actions. That report will be handed over to the incumbent manager. So that report will be checked and verified. Understood? This is what you would do. Now, let's get into the biggest part of the bank audit, which is the advances. Now, before auditing, we need to have some information on the advances. What are the two types of advances?
Funded and non-funded.
Funded and non-funded.
Advances, non-funded advances. Can you give an example for non-funded advances?
LC and guarantee.
Very good. Letters of credit, letters of comfort, bank guarantees. All of them are the examples of non-funded advances. Funded advances example?
OD.
Overdraft.
OD.
Cash
CC.
credit.
Term
Demand
loans,
loans.
demand loans, vehicle loans, housing loans, education loans. These are all the examples for funded advances. Non-funded advances, you need to be very, very careful because there will be no actual outflow of funds at the moment. It is contingent, right? So we have to be very careful. Now we have sector-wise classification, security-wise classification based on the prudential norm. Sector-wise, priority sector, non-priority sector. Security-wise, secured, unsecured. And in prudential norms, standard, NPA. Right? So what is the biggest concern in the case of an advance? It becoming bad. It becoming non-performing. So NPA is the biggest concern for an auditor. Now, normally banks will not give you loan unless there is a proper security. Security are primarily classified into two parts. One is primary security, another one is collateral security. Collateral security is a secondary security which comes into force only in the case where the primary security does not meet the requirements. Right? So these are the two things. Now, what are the forms of creating security? What are the forms of creating security? Mortgage.
Hypothecation.
Very good. Mortgage is applicable when? Is used when? Is applicable in the case of immovable property. When any person or an entity avails loan on the basis of the immovable property as a security, it is called mortgage. We have two types of mortgage: registered mortgage, equitable mortgage. Registered mortgage is a mortgage which is registered with the stamp authority. Okay, that will be recorded in the registry. Stamp duty, registrar will record it that this property, the bank has a claim. It becomes easier for anybody to check if it is registered. The moment you take the Kata extract, you will get, it is called EC. If you take the EC encumbrance certificate, it will come. Baradu kottavaru, baradu kondavaru, anta irutte. So that is about registered mortgage. Equitable mortgage is not, though I don't register it, I act in such a way that I have an intention to create security. I hand over the original documents, title deeds with the bank and say, you please keep it till the time I repay the loan. This is the equitable mortgage. Next is what? Pledge. What is the example? Right? So you have a property, especially in the case of gold, you have gold, you pledge it, you hand over the possession of the property on the basis of which you will get the loan. That is about pledge. It is for movable property. Next, hypothecation. It is for movable property. Car, auto, taxi, vehicles normally are under the hypothecation mode. Next, assignment. What do you mean by assignment? Transfer of a right in an existing or a future debt, or the right in the property. So this is assignment is possible only in the case of actionable claim. What do you mean by actionable claim? Debtors. That is an example. Insurance policy. I can assign the right in favor of another person. And lastly, we have set off. Set off under 219 first group ali balance Mickey Dinan group put together becomes 400. That's set off. Set off means what?
Creditors and debtors.
Debit and debtors will be adjusted.
Debtors and creditors will be adjusted, but in the context of a bank, I have a loan, I have an FD. They will adjust. I have some balance in my savings account, I have taken a loan, they will adjust it. That is set off. What is important in set off? Lien marking. Lien and the possession of the property is with me. Now, when you take loan against FD, what are you supposed to do? You have to hand over the original FDR with the bank. They will have with their custody. And in system, they will do something called lien marking against the FD. They will put a tick mark. So they'll know that the moment this FD becomes matured, it should not automatically go to their savings. Savings is loan. So it will not be given back to you until and unless the loan is cleared. If you don't repay, they will adjust. This is about modes of creating security. Then we have classification of assets, standard assets, and NPA. What is an NPA? When will you call an advance an NPA? When will you call an asset as an advance as an NPA?
Then it is overdue for more than 90 days.
What is overdue?
Principal or interest?
Very good. When the principal or interest or both is overdue for a period of 90 days, such an advance will be treated as a non-performing asset. This is a general principle in the case of a term loan. But in certain cases, in the case of a CC or OD, when will you call it as an NPA?
When account remains out of order.
Very good. When it becomes out of order, lift out of order, brain out of order. Atara. So when will a CC account or an OD account become an out of order?
When it does not generate income.
When it does not generate income, okay, very good. But when
the balance is not sufficient to cover the rest.
Very good. When the account is unable to serve the interest which is debited to the account, that will become an NPA. Or
when there are no credits.
Very good. When there are no credits for a continuous period of 90 days in that account, or when the account is always in excess of the drawing limit set. It is always in excess of the drawing limit set. Then that account becomes NPA. It will be called out of order. The moment it is an out of order, it becomes NPA. Understood?
Yes.
Now, the classification of an account as an NPA should be based on the record of recovery and not on the basis of security. Just because I have given a property which is there in Brigade Road or Lavelle Road, and if I am not repaying the loan, if it is overdue for a period of more than 90 days, the banks cannot take a stand that because the property is Brigade Road's property, it will always have the value. Let me not classify it as NPA is wrong, because NPA classification should be based on the record of recovery, not on the basis of security. First part, NPA should be classified on the borrower-wise basis, not on what? Facility-wise. That means what? Can you give an example?
So if I have a car loan and a house, loan and the house loan has become an NPA. So even the car loan should also be classified as an NPA.
Perfect. Even though there are recoveries which are proper. The moment one of your accounts become an NPA, all the other loan accounts will automatically become NPA. So what is important in a bank? Tracking of what is important? Your customer ID, customer identification number. And what is the control that every bank should have? Customer ID should always be unique. You may have 100 accounts in a bank. In 100 branches, there will be only one account ID. You can't have more than one customer ID. If you identify any duplicates, that means there is a serious deficiency in the control. Understood?
Yes.
That is what you have to check. Then, in the case of government guaranteed advances, what is important? It is important whether it is guaranteed by central government or state government. State government, it is equal to normal security. But central government, what is the condition? What is the benefit?
Cannot be classified as NPA.
The asset need not be classified as NPA if it is guaranteed by the central government. But for the purpose of income recognition, it will still be classified as NPA. What is the recognition principle? If it is an NPA, it will be recorded on the receipt basis. The income will be recorded on receipt basis, cash basis. So you will stop recognizing interest on accrual basis, and whatever interest that you have already considered, which you have not recovered, should be reversed, or a separate provision should be made. But during this period, interest will still be calculated, and it will be calculated in a memorandum account for you to have a track. Understood? Now, assuming that an asset has become an NPA, you need to check the security. Sometimes people would have taken loan by fraudulently giving the securities. The company shares the company. So in these situations, what is important? You need to check the erosion. School soil erosion. Class knowledge erosion. Security erosion. Your expressions are so cold. Papa expressions. ಅದು ರಾತ್ರಿ 9 ಗಂಟೆಲಿ ಅದು ಎಲ್ಲಾರ ಮುಂದೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಈ ತರ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ? ಯಾಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ಬೇಜಾರು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ? ಪಾಪ ಟರ್ಕಿಯಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಜನ ಸತ್ತೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವರೇ ಪಾಪ ಖುಷಿಯಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್? ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೀಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಟೈಮ್ ಊಟ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಇದೆ. ಸಮ್ಮರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಆಚೆ ಬಿಸಿಲಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಓದ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ. ಅಂದ್ರೂ ನೀವು ಇಷ್ಟು ಬೇಜಾರು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗ್ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಈಗಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲೂ ಇಷ್ಟು ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೀಸ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಖುಷಿ ಪಡ್ತೀರಾ, ನೀವು ಬೇಜಾರು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ಏನ್ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಒಂದ್ 5 ನಿಮಿಷ ರಿವಿಷನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ? ನನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. ಐ ನೋ, ಬಟ್ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಏನ್ ಇಲ್ವಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ. ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ? ಈಗ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಜಾರು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ನೀವು? ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ 2 to 5 ಬೇಜಾರು ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಹಾಲ್ ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗಬೇಕು, 2 to 5 ಹೋದಾಗ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗಬೇಕು, ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗಬೇಕು, ಇನ್ವಿಜಿಲೇಟರ್ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗಬೇಕು. ನನ್ ನೋಡ್ದೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗಬೇಕು? ನಾನ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಸೆಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಾನ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನನ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಜಾರು ಅಂತ? ಇನ್ನೇನ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್? ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ತಾನೆ? ಮತ್ತೆ ಖುಷಿಯಾಗಿ. See, there are 2 problems here. ಒಂದು ಏಜಿಂಗ್. ನೀವು ಪಾಪ ಡೆಟರ್ಸ್ ಏಜಿಂಗ್, ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್ ಏಜಿಂಗ್ ನೋಡೇ ಸುಸ್ತಾಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀರಾ. ಇನ್ನು ನೀವು ಸುಸ್ತಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಬೇಗ ಏಜ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಈಗಲೇ ಒಂದು 80 ವರ್ಷ 70 ವರ್ಷದ ತರ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತೀರಾ. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಕೂದಲು ಉದ್ರೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ನನ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಕನ್ಸರ್ನೇ ಅದು. ಕೂದಲು ಉದ್ರೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಉದ್ರೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬರೋದು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅದು. ಆರ್ಟಿಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಬಿಳಿ ಕೂದಲಾದ್ರೂ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ, ಕೂದಲಿದೆ, ಬಿಳಿ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳಕಾದ್ರೂ ಕೂದಿದೆ. ಬಿಳಿ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಡೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಕೂದಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವರ್ಷನಾದ್ರೂ ಇರ್ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ ಕೂದಲು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ. ನಿಮ್ ಫೋಟೋ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನನ್ ಒಂದ್ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಇತ್ತು ಕೂದಲು ಬೆಟ್ಟದ ತರ, ಇವಾಗ ನೋಡಿ ಹೆಂಗಾಗೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಕ್ಕಾದ್ರೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಉಳಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಖುಷಿಯಾಗಿ ನಗ್ನಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು. ರೆಡಿಮೇಡ್ ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು? ಏನೋ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ಅಲ್ವಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ ಕೂದಲು ಹೆಂಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಗತವೈಭವ ಅದು. ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಜನರೇಷನ್ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ಬೇಜಾರು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಬೇಡಿ, ನಾನು ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ. ಇವತ್ತಾದ್ರೆ ರಿವಿಷನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಹಿಂದಿನ ದಿನಾನೇ ಬರೋದು. ಬೇಜಾರು ಮಾಡಿ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಪ್ಪಿತಪ್ಪಿನೂ ಸಿಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ತಲೆ ಕೆಡಿಸ್ಕೊಂಬೇಡಿ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ಬಿ ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ.
ಆತರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಪಾರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಾರ್ದು ಸರ್, ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಇನ್ನೂ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗತ್ತಾ? ಅಲ್ಲ, ನಿಮ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ಸ್ ಹಂಗಿದೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಅಪ್ಪ ದೊಡ್ಡ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಅಪ್ಪ ನಿನ್ಗೆ ಅನ್ನಂಗೆ.
Don't read the book by its cover.
Don't judge the book by its cover. ಓಕೆನಪ್ಪ. ಏನೋ ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಕೋಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಡಿ, ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ, ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ, ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ನಾನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ಬಾರ್ದು. ಓಕೆ, ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಕಮ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್. ಇವಾಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೋಡಿ ಮಕ್ಕ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಒಂಚೂರು ಖುಷಿ ಬಂತು. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಫೀಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು ಖುಷಿ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಲೈಫಲ್ಲಿ. ಅದ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಖುಷಿ ಆಗ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. Now let's come back to audit of banks. So in a case of a security, if the value of security is eroded by 50%, then what are you supposed to do? You have to straight away classify it as doubtful advances. If the value of security is eroded to such an extent that the value of security itself is 10%, then what are you supposed to do? Treat it as a loss asset. This is what is important. Now, NPI, you already know, principal or interest is overdue for a period of 90 days. Now, in the case of an agricultural advances, NPI classification is slightly different. It is based on crop duration.
Crop season.
Crop season. We divide it into two parts. One, short crop duration advances and long crop advances. What is the NPA provision? When will you classify a short crop advances as an NPA?
2 crop season.
Very good. 2 crop season. If it is overdue for 2 crop season. For a long crop duration, one crop season. Who will decide what crop season is? State level bankers committee will decide what is a crop duration. This is important. Okay. Next, in the case of consortium advances, what do you mean by consortium advances?
Many banks come together to lend to a single party.
Very good. 2 or more banks come together and give advances. And finally, all the banks will put NAMA. Right? That's what happened in the case of Vijay Mallya, PNB. Right? So this is what will happen. So Harsha, don't take it offensive. I know you may be working as a CEO in a bank, but don't be sad. It's okay. Mallya has done it. You have not done it. Now, consortium advances means what? There will be one lead banker and then there will be participating bankers. So now the lead banker will take the responsibility of distributing the principal and interest that it has recovered from the loans, and it will share according to the agreement, sharing agreements. Now it has become an NPA. You have to recognize it as NPA in the book. All the parties to the consortium advances should recognize it as NPA. And how you should recognize your income? On the basis of your share in the overall advances. The interest should be recognized on that basis. Understood?
Yes.
Next. Next, reversal of incomes under NPA, we've already discussed. Either reverse the income that you have recognized or create a provision. We didn't discuss on the prudential norms percentages. I'm sure that you already know. Standard assets, do you make any provision? You make any provision?
0.4.
Yes, you do make provision, 0.4%. For substandard assets, it is based on. For substandard assets, so what will be the provision?
15%.
Very good, 15%.
Secured and unsecured.
Secured and unsecured, very good. If it's unsecured, it's 100%. So only secured. Then doubtful category D1, one year. How much?
25%. 25.
D2, which is 1
40.
to
40%.
and then D3, 100%. What is a loss asset? A loss asset is either asset which is written off as bad by the banks or indicated by the concurrent auditor, RBI, or the statutory auditor. Could be straight loss asset and a difference, See, what is the difference between a provision and a write-off? If you make a write-off, that item will go off from your books of account. If you are providing in the books of account, the item will be there, but a corresponding provision will exist. That is the main point of difference. Bad debts ko provision for bad debts ko vyathyasa enandre bad debts direct debtors ge effect kodtira. Provision for bad debts debtors ge effect kodala. You will give effect to the provision entry, not to the debtor. Debtor will be still there in your books of account. So that's the difference. There's one concept called takeout finance. It is applicable in the case of all the infrastructure and long-term finances, where after hitting each milestone, let's say BMRCL has taken a loan from a particular bank. So it's not easy for them to repay because huge activities are involved, series of activities are involved, and revenue collection happens after a long time. So once they hit a milestone, they will be financed, which will be in turn used to repay their existing finances. Understood? So this is the takeout finance. And then memorandum of accounts, maintenance of memorandum accounts is already understood. I think we have covered all the concepts in the audit of bank. Very important, drawing power is different from sanction limit. Sanction limit is the overall facilities that one can avail in the form of example. I have CC, I have OD, I have a term loan, I have a packing credit loan, I have a housing loan. Everything put together, what is the maximum cap of loan that I can take? That is sanction limit. Drawing limit is used in the context of CC and OD. Now, normally your CC and OD will be financed based on the security of current assets. If any entity has taken a loan, a cash credit or an overdraft in excess of 5 crores, then the stock audit will be conducted by the bank. Banks are required to conduct the stock audit. That is important. Second important, materiality in LFAR. What are the advances that will be reported? Any advance which is 5% of the total advances or 2 crores, whichever is
less.
Very good. Whichever is lower will have to be reported. There are a few questions which we need to answer. Understood?
Yes.
With this, we cover the concept of audit of banks. So where do we stand now as far as the revisions are concerned? We have covered most of the concepts. 1 second, let me just open the material. Okay. I think we have covered almost all chapters. Yes, I do understand that there are a few standards which are not covered. Standalone standards, for example, 550 is not covered, 510, 710 is not covered, right? I think 501, we just yesterday when we were discussing audit of items of FS, we discussed existence and condition of inventory, litigations and segment reporting. We just discussed that. So 510 and then 550, 580. I think that standard is very simple. Written representations is nothing much. You have to understand in that particular written representation, in addition to obtaining written representations from the management, in some cases, auditors may obtain written representation from other persons. Examples is what they'll ask: actuary, in-house legal counsel, or an engineer. So from them also they can obtain the written representation. That is important. And auditors in some cases want to reconfirm some of which responsibilities in written representations. What are those matters? These are the two important areas that you have to focus on. 530, I think Asha ma'am will cover. Sampling, Asha ma'am will cover. Okay. So I think we have covered almost all the topics. At least I know revision sessions will not aim in covering 100%. At least 60 to 70% is covered. Company audit is left out, but company audit, wherever there is a need, they've already touched upon. Appointment provisions are very important. 139, 141 subsection 3 that those disqualification section is extremely crucial. They have stopped asking questions of late, so there is high possibility of those questions coming in your exam. So please do focus on that area. Okay. RTP is released. Normally, what is the practice? One question will repeat. One question they will take it from RTP. So please do read RTP properly because it is important. Now, when we write on the correct or incorrect questions, I've already told you, write correct or incorrect only. Don't use the word true, false, yes, no. It's not expected. Then first line should be whether the statement is correct or incorrect, and then reason. Reason should be precise. Majority of the cases you will get incorrect as the answers. Logical, no. For them to give a correct question, what reason will you give? So it's difficult. So majority of the cases it will be incorrect. When it is incorrect, you need to read the statement properly. One word will be wrong, that's all. For example, assertions, what they will give, assertions are the representations made by the auditor, which is used to identify possible misstatements. Statement is incorrect. What is the only word which is wrong here? Assertions are the representations made by the management. That's all. Okay. Now, and then they might ask you, misappropriation of assets is often accompanied by the employers at a lower level with the proper authorization. The answer is without proper authorization. That's all. Like this questions will be there. It's very easy. It's very easy for you to figure it out. So it's just that you have to read it properly. Okay, that's the thing. So when you are preparing for your examination, please take up introduction chapter, company audit, complete company audit, take up the audit evidence and audit documentation chapter. That is important. Then cover audit report, cover audit in automated environment, cover audit of banks, and then take up audit of items of FS. Extremely important. Very, very easy chapter. Audit of items of financial statements. Read some allied standards then, and then take up the audit of different types of entities. And then lastly, risk assessment and internal control chapter. Like that, you can prepare. Analytical procedures also very easy. It's simple for you to answer. Okay. Now let's solve few MCQs. Can you see this screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now see, case study we have already discussed. Please don't read the case study unless the question warrants you to do the same. Right? So now this is they've given one big case. Let's try to answer. Auditor is fact checking about promoters and key managerial personnel. You have started the audit and you're checking who are the promoters, who are their key managerial personnel. She is also considering competence of staff to perform the engagement. There's the auditor who is trying to determine who should do this audit. What is she trying to do? Is she trying to establish audit strategy? Is she conducting preliminary engagement activity? Is she designing audit plan? Or is she checking the compliance with ethical requirements? What is your answer? Use the chat box and answer quickly, fast. And all the options are not right.
So your voice is breaking.
Is it getting stuck?
Hello.
Happy birthday, Anjana. What's special?
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Anjali.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday, Anjana.
Happy birthday. Anjali.
Happy birthday.
birthday, Anjana.
Thank you, everyone.
ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳು.
Happy birthday, Anjana.
Thank you.
Sir, I think your video is stuck again. So your voice is also breaking.
Okay.
Maybe because he's simultaneously browsing, right?
Yeah, and sharing.
He did share the screen that time. Did he? No, he didn't. Did he?
He did, he did.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me, see me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Okay, I'm very sorry. Can you please allow me to share the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Now tell me, what is the answer? What do you think is the answer?
B.
B.
What is she doing?
Preliminary.
She is doing the preliminary engagement activity. See, for sure, she is not checking her compliance requirement. Correct. No, that is at least understood with the answer, right? So the ethical requirements is to do with her independence, competence, professional activities. So that is not the answer. So when in doubt, you need to always go by that. It's not a plan. She's already commenced the audit in one way. If you can see, she's already started checking the details about the promoters and whom I should send whom I should send for the audit. So it's the preliminary engagement activity that will be after establishing the audit strategy. So that's why audit strategy is not the right answer. Audit strategy comes at the first place, right? Next. No, why does it take such a long time to for the screen to be visible? I don't know. Yes, next. Consideration of number of locations, a number and location of branches, requirements of financial reporting framework, and expected time of completion are relevant factors primarily for which of the following?
Establishing overall audit strategy.
Establishing overall audit strategy. Okay. Others?
I thought it was B.
Sorry?
Establishing overall audit strategy, I thought.
Establishing overall audit strategy. Okay. Others, what do you think? Oh, you're using chat box? Okay. See, the words are very confusing here. Correct? No, when we read, no, it is very easy. But when you check the options, is it overall audit strategy or is it something else? Is it planning? Because it becomes confusing, right? So here, what is the answer? What is the correct answer? It's the overall audit strategy. See, you need to understand strategy is to do with the resource allocation, resource management at the top. So the first thing comes as strategy. How many people I should send? What are the places where I have to cover? Then you will plan. So we will send for these many number of days. We will do for that is the next step. And further is about program. Right. So that's how it is. So whenever you see the number, the word number, it's always the resources. So it's the overall audit strategy. Understood?
Yes.
Next. Planned inquiry and visit is part of which one?
Sir, option B.
Option B are part of risk assessment procedures and fall in the field of audit plan. Okay. Others, what do you think? You're going and planned visit, planned inquiry and visit. So is it a strategy? Definitely not a strategy, because strategy is before this. You're going and trying to visit. So it's before that. Now, the set description is not related to audit planning. Is it not planning? It's planning on, planned inquiry and visit.
Yes.
So it is Definitely not this option. Plan will scope. Audit program is actually after planning. Audit program is specifics as to what area you have to check. What is that you have to do? So that is not audit program. So this is option B is the right answer. Understood?
Yes.
Yes.
Next one. Next one. 1.4. What is detailed set of instructions given to assistants in engagement team known as? Assistants in engagement team known as, what is it called?
Audit program.
Audit program, right? You are going to give audit program to your staff where they go on following those instructions. So that's why we have a debate, no, whether audit program is going to kill the creativity and innovation of the people because you just follow what is given there. So it's audit program. Next, the issue of generation of scrap has been overlooked in detailed set of instructions given to engagement team. What should be the proper course of action? See, this might look something related to case, but even without reading, you can answer it, but let's not take the chance. Let's go and read. What is that they're talking? See, out of the 5 questions, only this question wanted us to go and read the case. Correct, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, during the course of execution of the above set of instructions, it has been brought to our notice that company is also producing substantial quantities of scrap generated during the manufacturing process. However, no instructions have been given to the engagement team in this regard. They started doing the audit. They have come to know that the entity is generating scrap. How they should treat this scrap? Should it be forming part of inventory? Should they show it as should they expense it off, or should they show it as other income? How? They have not been guided. The team is not guided. So what is that she had to do? Simran, what she had to do? She should ignore this information as audit has already begun. Wrong, no, she can't ignore it.
Yes.
She should modify earlier set of instructions. Could be, we don't know. She should leave the matter to the wisdom of engagement team. Nobody will do that. She should put the ball in the court of management as she was not provided with the complete information earlier. She's not playing tennis.
B.
Right? Not right. The right one is modify.
Option.
This is testing whether can we modify the audit plan, audit program, and audit strategy. That concept you would have read. Auditor can modify audit plan program beautifully. But when it comes to application, we might get confused. That is what they are testing. Understood? So the next question is also similar to that aspect. Now you can go through. Okay. Eight. This is a correct or incorrect? What is your answer?
Incorrect.
Correct.
Anybody is of the view that it is correct? Teaming and lading is one of the techniques of inflating cash payments. Correct or incorrect?
Incorrect.
Incorrect, right? Why? Because teaming and lading is one of the techniques used to
Suppress
the cash, not inflating the cash payments. Can you answer second question? Control environment can prevent, detect, and correct a material misstatement.
Incorrect.
Correct or incorrect?
Correct.
Correct.
Incorrect.
Incorrect. Why is it incorrect? What is the answer that you write? Okay. You tell me what will you write wordings for this question. You can't write control environment cannot prevent it at correct mistake. That cannot be the right reason. Reason.
It does not prevent it.
It does not prevent, but it could detect and correct. See, for this, you need to know what control environment is actually. The definition, remember yesterday we discussed mercy, components of internal control. The first one is control environment. What does control environment comprise? It comprises the area or the environment where the top management develops or gives or creates, where the entity's activities and operations are carried out. Control environment per se, as such, do not prevent, correct, or detect a misstatement. It just provides a framework within which all the components of internal control work. It is the place where all the components of internal control come into picture. But just by providing or laying out an environment does not by itself, per se, you can use the word, prevent, detect, correct the misstatement. Control environment just comprises the attitudes, actions, and awareness of the top management. Only with this, it cannot prevent, detect, correct a misstatement. Control environment together with other components of, this is what you have to write, control environment together with other components of internal control, like control activities, entities risk assessment process, would help in preventing, detecting, and correcting the misstatement. Please be very careful when you write the reasoning. Okay. Next. What is the answer for question number 1?
Incorrect.
Incorrect.
Correct or incorrect?
Incorrect.
Incorrect.
What is the answer then?
At the financial statement level and assessment.
Very good. See, you're able to address the specifics here. The entire answer is revolving only around this word, or only at assertion. You have to replace the word only at assertion with what? At the overall financial statement level and also at the assertion level. That's all. Next, this one, third one.
Incorrect.
Correct, sir.
Correct, sir.
Correct or incorrect?
Incorrect.
Incorrect.
What is correct?
Observation.
Observation.
Very good. Now, while what is that you are going to write, you are going to repeat the same thing. While auditing the books of account, the auditor of the process about to obtain evidence. In the present case, audit procedure used by the auditor is known as observation. Observation procedure or technique is used when he is trying to understand the process. That's all. It gives you full 2 marks. So correct or incorrect is either very simple or very difficult. So there is no in-between category here. It's very similar. That's why 30 plus 14, correct? No, 14 marks. No, 30 plus 14, 44 marks is either extremely easy or extremely difficult. I cannot tell for all the other questions, but these 2 areas, you get it, or you lose it, you lose it. That's all. So please be very careful. You can make it as your strength. So you have to aim at least 40 in these 2 areas. It is certainly possible. Certainly possible. 25 at least in MCQs you can get it, no? So 25 here, and then out of 14, at least 6 questions you can answer right. So 2 there and 5, 7 marks. So out of 44, you take out 7. At least the balance should come. Understood? So that's how you have to prepare. Please do solve as many questions. How do you get confidence or comfort level for solving when you have solved more number? Some of the questions you have to use elimination. Some of the questions you have to directly select the answer. Reading options will be confusing in some cases. So you will get to know all these small aspects when you have solved questions. And case study, don't read the case in the first place. Go to the question only if it warrants. Go back and read the case study. Okay. I hope these sessions, whatever 6 hours or almost like 6 hours yesterday, because yesterday we took around half an hour extra. So is helpful. Please do let me know if you have any specific concerns, questions which needs to be addressed. We can go through that. Otherwise, I've already shared my email ID with you. Please do drop in a mail if you have any questions, any clarifications required. I hope we have utilized 3 + 3 6 hours in the most judicial manner. We have not wasted it. I hope it was refreshing for you more than anything. I've just given you the roadmap. I have not done a really 100% job because it's a revision session. It's a roadmap for you guys. You have to now take it forward in the right direction. I know there are a lot of concepts which are not touched upon at this session, but certainly you have read it. You will definitely be able to remember, revise it when you go for your studies. Please do read, have a proper planned approach. Whatever you're doing, do it on a consistent basis. Certainly exams will be easier. So we'll meet again, I don't know when, probably the day before your exam, to just talk and say hi. We'll come and meet. Till then, please do read well. Please maintain your health. It's very important. Don't act weird. Be normal, because like you, there are thousands of people who are writing exams. PU students are writing. Now, SSLC students are writing. They're all writing same examination like the way you are going to write. So don't act weird and don't think that you're carrying the burden of the entire earth. Things will go. Whether you do it or not, it will go automatically. So you need not worry so much about it. Don't think that you are doing some sacrifice to the nation. Don't give that extra proud feeling at home, and don't expect your parents to be around you all the time at your service. Hotel only, we don't get proper service. We have to wait. So don't expect your parents to and then say that, no, I'm reading. Why are you not giving all those things? It should be there. Milk should be there. Food should be there. Don't expect all. Be normal. When you are normal, things also will be normal. Exams also will go in a normal manner. Results will also be normal. What is the normal result? Pass. You will also pass. So when you are normal, things will all be fine and good. Okay. So on that note, I don't have really any quotes to tell, because you know that whatever I make becomes a statement in the future. On that note, you please be happy. That's the most important thing. You eat well if you have not eaten. I don't think there is a need for you to sleep. But if you have been concentrating in the class, you sleep well properly. We'll meet again in some other session. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you so much for giving your time. This is more important. I can come and spend 1, 2, 3, how many hours you want, but your time is very, very precious. And I value that a lot. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be with you at this point. Thank you. Have a nice day. Good night. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
sir,
Thank you, sir.
if you
Thank
don't
you so
mind, could you
much, sir.
please share your email ID again?
Yes.
Please.
Can you please, YouTube, can you please stop?
I will, sir.
Please stop the YouTube.